Hi everyone, my name is mpyanev, a professional software engineer and a computer science professor at Fitchburg State University. And today you'll learn how to design APIs from scratch using Python's frameworks Flask and FastAPI. This course does not require any prior experience, it's all here and we're going to start from the very basics. We will design several real-world API applications, such as fully operational Google search that assess millions of web pages using API services. Then I will show you how you can build web server dictionary that will enable users to find the exact explanation of certain word or sentence. Finally, you will build a web Instagram image filter. I will show you how you can build a software that receives an image to apply filters to make it look a little bit better, and for that we're going to use GET and POST requests as well as the FastAPI. So that's all that we're going to be doing today, and now let's get started. Introduction to Web API. But first, let me introduce you to the sponsor of this video, PeakMinder. PeakMinder is a website where you can find thousands of practice tests for the most popular IT and business certifications. Those include Google, AWS, CompTIA, PMP, and way more. Every practice test includes 10 free questions where you can test your knowledge. For instance, if I want to prepare for the Google DevOps certification, I can go on peakminder.com, check all the criteria for this exam, and then get access to the 6 practice tests. Once I complete a test, I will get my score and an overview of all the mistakes I made with a detailed explanation on why my answer is wrong. Please make sure to check them out. You can use a coupon code MartinWhite for 50% discount in the next 5 days. Thanks for watching, and now let's get back to the video. Hello everyone. We all think that API could be something scary. We think that it is something like a magic that we don't understand. But in fact, we're all using API each and every day when we're doing web purchases, using mobile applications, and so on. So why this should be so scary for us if we actually use it every day? So in general, the API means Application Programming Interface. But this doesn't say actually anything to us. And the important thing here is to understand what the API is actually doing. So the API is basically a set of definitions and protocols for building, communicating, and integrating different types of applications that are built with certain type of software. And this is what actually is called here interface. So API is basically a way to interact with applications, but it doesn't provide to the user what is the actual structure of that applications. And this is a very good way for the companies to provide certain information to the users without telling them how actually this data is obtained and processed internally. So as you can see on the graph, we usually have a server which is the database, and the database is accessible from different applications. As you can see, I put here web applications, mobile applications, TV applications. So we can access all this data via using API. And a good example here would be the way that we're purchasing tickets to fly with airplanes. We don't always go to the websites of the companies, but we're going to third-party website where you can see different tickets from the different type of companies and compare them. So those companies are basically communicating with the airline APIs to obtain information about the prices, luggages, different types of offers, times, and so on. And let me give you a little more detailed example so you can understand better what is API. So here we're going to look at some day-to-day situation. So in order to get a ride with the cab, you need to do the following actions. So the first thing you will do is to request to the cab to pick you up, and you will need to provide your contact information and location details. And in response, once you do that, your request will actually get the information for the cab and where we would pick you up. Then once you get a cab, you request to the driver to take you to a specific location, and then again you get a response from the cab driver that he drives you to the desired location again. And notice that here you actually don't need to operate a car in order to get from point A to point B. So in that case, the cap acts like an API. So here he's the API layer, because you might not know how the car operates and how to drive it basically, which sends you to your desired location. So even though now I guess API sounds quite easy for you, now as everything in programming, there are obviously different types of APIs, which makes our work a little bit more complex. So in the real world, obviously there is no customer and driver, but we have HTTP request methods in order to communicate to a certain server. So once you access your browser, basically your actions are creating a HTTP request to the server or to the website, for example, that you want to visit, and then the server provides you the information that you need. So the basic HTTP request methods are GET, and this means that you get some resources from the server. Then you have the POST method, where you send, or the server sent, some data to certain location, but in that case this might change the state of the server. And finally we have the put method, which replaces some data on the server, and this is actually quite similar to the post method, but here there is seen a necessity for the put request to produce some result. Then we have the head method, which basically requests some status of the server or header of certain section. Then you have the connect method, which basically, I know connect means connection, so if you imagine it as a tunnel between you and certain resource on the server, so once you create a tunnel, you can basically inter-exchange with that source. And then we have the options, and obviously options here is used to describe the communication with the target resource with which you already connected. Then we have the trace method, and the trace, obviously from the name you can see that it is used to target certain resource and to find it, to find the path to it. And then the patch method is basically used to apply some modifications to the resource that you assessed. So those are basically all the methods, guys. And those, as you can see, are very few. Obviously we're going to extend that way more once we jump into the Python programming. But that's all for today. This is the brief introduction to API. I hope it was actually useful for you. We use some real world examples which should make you understand the API way better. That's it. Thank you very much for watching that video, guys, and I will see you in the next video, where we will put our hands on getting a very simple API. Thanks for watching. So let's jump now, guys, to our first API issue, and let's show how it works. Now, as you can see, we are on this link, api.coindesk.com/v1/bpi/currentprice.json. Okay, and here what you can see in front of you basically is an information provided from a cryptocurrency website, and this API basically gives you the current Bitcoin price. Okay, but now you can access the information, but how you can basically interact with it, let's find out. So first of all, how did we get this information that you can see here? We got it with this link. So once you run this link into the browser, you basically send a GET request to the endpoint, and then the API is sending you a response in two components. First of all, it sends a request, it sends a response that says that the request was a valid one, and then it sends all this data here that doesn't make much sense. So good job, you already saw the data from the browser, but since this is a programming course, we would like to see this data programmatically, right? So for that reason, I will go to the terminal, and now let's try to access this data from here. So what I will write is curl -i -x, then get, and here you can actually copy and paste the actual address. Okay, and then I will write another parenthesis. Okay, so you can see that, guys, after you write this and you write the get request, and this is how you do the API, you basically get first of all http://200, which is the first bit of information. So this means that the status of your request is valid, so you can proceed. Then a payload of data, which specifies the documentation here. Okay, so you get some information for the server, you get timestamps for assessing it, and so on. And once you get this information here, now you're able to see the data since everything's okay, and this here is the actual data. So actually, let's break down what we've done here. So obviously you understand now what this get request means, but why we added here -i and -x? So -i enable us to see the protocol response headers. For example, if I do it without I, let's see. So let's remove now -i and see what happens. You can see that you don't see the response protocol header, so we don't get all of this information, which for us is actually quite useful because obviously you want to see the documentation for the information that you are getting. And -x basically allows us to define the method we are using, which is get. So this allows us to basically use the tool that we did. And so guys, once you have this data, you might think, okay, but why would I need all of those data, right? Well, here, once you have this data, you can actually build a program that can show you the price of Bitcoin as it moves and build an application with it. And obviously this information will always change. So your program will always give up-to-date information, which is not possible without API. So that was everything I wanted to show for today. Actually, for a first video, you learned quite a lot. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and in the next video we're going to cover the structure of the file that you get from the API and some additional topics as well. That's it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. What is JSON? Hello everyone, today we're going to talk about the most commonly used data type with API, which is called JSON. And JSON is nothing more than simply formatting your data in a way that is understandable for you and for the computer. So what you basically have here is a key and a value. And key is description of the value. For example, let's say the key for me is person and the value is Martin, right? And for you it might be the key again person, but the value might be John or Adam or whatever name you have. The same with Bitcoin, you would have a key price and then the value would be price. So this is how the structure of the JSON looks like. Other types that are very commonly used are, for example, XML or even plain text. There are plenty of options to send and exchange data with a server, but the JSON was actually the most commonly used. And if you don't know what JSON means, it basically means JavaScript object notation. Okay, so it comes from JavaScript. And the reason why we actually use JSON quite often is because it is very easily accessible with most of the programming languages. Obviously, it is quite simple to do it with Java, but also it is very simple to use it with Python as well. And you can see how a typical JSON file looks like. So you would get name of the widget main window, you will get width, then the value, height, then the value. You would get image, and then you would define what are the parameters of the image. And usually you can have subkeys here. For example, for image, you can have the folder of the image that is located, the name of the image, and this is all again in JSON files. For example, for text, you can have data, check here, size and style, and many more. Okay, so this is the way that you basically include the JSON and how JSON file looks like. And then if you want to transfer the same data to XML, it would actually look like this. Okay, so it doesn't change the length too much, but actually you need to write, for example, width 2 times, not only 1, because it works based on those tags here. But with XML you basically have the value between the starting and ending tag for each section. But trust me, those files, they provide exactly the same data. Actually, from one I converted to the other. There are plenty of converters online to convert between XML and JSON. So if you want to do some project on your own, but you have one and you need the other, the conversion is quite simple. So this was everything I want to share with you for today, guys. Now you're one step further to become an advanced API developer. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. API design. So before learning on the API design patterns, let's first talk about why API is needed and what we basically use it for. So the very first thing we usually use API is to integrate multiple applications. And this happens when two applications need to communicate and exchange data. So let's say that some company uses one system to count its employees' hours, how much they were working, and another system that counts their salary. Well, these programs could be completely different, created by different companies, different manufacturers, written with completely different code. So one cannot understand the other. In fact, during my work, I've been working with many systems that are developed from different companies from different countries. And we're always saying that one system speaks French and the other speaks German. So in order to communicate, they need some sort of bidirectional data transfer. And by doing that transfer, they could actually represent and estimate more accurate picture of how much the employee was working and how much the employee should be actually making this month, right? So for that reason, we're using API in order to exchange information between these softwares quite easily. And so both of them can provide the accurate output that we're looking for. The other reason we're using API is for building cross-platform applications. For instance, let's take Facebook. You can use Facebook not only from your computer, but you can also use it from your Android app, iOS app, and so on. So any updates that Facebook makes needs to be actually sent to each of those devices and be presented in the right way. And trust me, the different devices, they need their own data because they are written within specific programming language that understands different things. So for that reason, Facebook was smart enough to build their own API, so this data can be exchanged accurately and the information to the users can be the correct one. And also, by Facebook having these APIs, actually other users or other app developers can use the Facebook API in order to display data from Facebook into their websites, which is quite useful. Now, the next reason is actually one of the key reasons for the massive growth of Google and Amazon, and this is enhancing functionality of applications. So if you ever wondered why Google and Amazon are so advanced, for example, Amazon has about 50% of the market in US, well, this is because they have very good software engineers that can make sure that the data provided to Google or to Amazon is the correct one, and also the data sent to the users can be quite accurate, which enables different companies to make business with them. So for example, with Google, the OAuth API enables many different apps to use Google in order to manage their login. For example, if you've seen in some websites login with Google, well, this is API to Google, and once you select the button, you're actually transferred and you got information from Google. Then the next thing you can use APIs for is to provide external access to your application, and this is actually massively used by the trading apps, because there you need to buy and sell certain stocks or anything else, even currency, and in order to do that you need to have an accurate estimate for the exactly current price, and in that way you and the company you are buying with ensure that everybody is on the same page and you're not buying on a price that is not the real one. So this financial data is actually again provided by API. So the app that you're using is basically asking the servers how much is the price for buying and selling, and in that way you actually know and you can make a purchase instantly or sell. And the final concept is for building serviceless apps. And this means that if you want to create an app connected to certain API or to certain website, well, basically the information in your app will change as the API also changes its information. So in that way, you basically don't need to maintain the information inside your app, but this happens absolutely automatically, which is quite useful. And actually soon I think to launch my own website, which is going to make easier for the users to find Udemy courses, just because actually Udemy also have quite a nice API that can be used from developers, and every external user can create its own website and automatically update the data there or the courses showed there to be aligned with the courses that Udemy actually have. Now, after we talked what we use the API for in different scenarios, which I think is quite useful for you to see how important the API is and how it distinguishes the successful from unsuccessful companies, especially on the web space. Since you already know also that the APIs are using HTTP methods, those methods actually have certain architecture patterns, and they're about 4 quite famous architecture patterns, from which the most famous one is the RESTful API. And the RESTful API is basically a guidelines of 6 defined specifically points, and they define specifically which requests and responses to a server can be accepted based on those guidelines, but about this we're going to talk in really big detail later on. Then we have the GraphQL API, which was initially developed by Facebook, but now it's completely released as an open source project, so if you want to check it out on the web, please feel free. But it's actually, for a good reason, not that big part of a Facebook today, and this is because it struggles to handle dynamically changing requests, so it is a little bit more complex to use it comparing to the RESTful API. Then we have the CRUD API, which is typically used to build a database, and this one is also quite useful because it is actually mapped to the REST standard, so you find yourself many times in situations that you would use the RESTful API with the CRUD API to build a database. And finally you have the SOAP API. I mean, I couldn't avoid mentioning this one because it is one of the earliest APIs developed out there. It's still used in some ways, but in this course we're not going to cover it, as we would like to look at more modern techniques to use APIs. So let's talk now about the RESTful API, since this is the one that we're actually going to use. It uses 4 HTTP methods, and I know that in the first slide I mentioned that we're using 6, but the ones that we're mainly going to use are actually 4, and they are the get, post, put, and delete. If you have some experience with GitHub, for example, you can see that there you quite often try to get some resources from there and use the get request. And another good thing about the RESTful API is that it's quite secured because it doesn't actually remember any of your previous interactions. So basically you're the one that is responsible for recording your historical data, because this API wouldn't do it just for security reasons. So this means that, for example, if you go to Google and let's say that Google actually uses the RESTful API, and for example you decide to go to some Google website like YouTube, well, YouTube will remember your data, or you would actually stay logged in, but Google will not know your information just based on that. So instead of Google remembering your information and storing it on the server, they are actually storing a cookie inside your computer. So this cookie that is your thing remembers the data, so you actually don't provide it to somebody else. So I hope this lecture was quite informative for you guys, because I put it a lot of effort to put it together and explain you all those things. Thank you very much for watching, and in the next video we're going to actually start using Python, and we'll talk about how to work with the APIs using it. That's it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. So hello everyone. You probably understand by now that working and using APIs is something that we need to do programmatically. Simple interaction with the URLs is completely not enough, because in that way you have the information but you are not actually using it for some purpose. And for that reason you're using programming languages. And you can use APIs with pretty much every programming language, but the most common ones are C#, JavaScript, Python, Ruby, and so on. So for that reason, in that course, we're going to use Python and our terminal to basically assess and work with the APIs. So if you remember, last time we were using our command line in our terminal to run commands with API, but now we're actually going to use the Python-based Jupyter Notebook in order to do that. So let's jump to the Jupyter Notebook and see what we can basically do there. So let's pull up a terminal, and in order to activate the Jupyter Notebook, you simply need to write Jupyter Notebook in your terminal, and then your notebook would start, and you can see that you can see it in your browser, and basically you see your whole file system here. And I advise you actually to create a folder in your computer where you store all the files for that course. So this is what I'm going to be doing right now. I will just access that folder. So here I'm in the resources folder, and let's create a new Python 3 notebook, and you can see that here now you can type different commands and actually run them with Python. So once you're into your Jupyter Notebook file, now you can actually run Python commands. So let's create a variable called URL, and the URL will be equal to the website that we assessed earlier on, as you can see here. And when I run it, it's already there. So if you don't know, actually you just need to press Shift and then Enter, or for Mac users Shift and then Return for going to the next line and running the previous one. So now we already created a variable called URL, and this is a string that is holding the URL variable that we created. Now let's write another variable called response equals to request dot get, and here we can write URL. And actually this command will actually not be accepted. Yes, we're getting an error, and the reason for that error is that earlier we didn't import the response library. So I will do import request, and let's run that again. It's actually requests. Okay, so now you can see that this is accepted since we have the library, and now we can use the get method. So now we get the URL and we assign this to response. So you can see that if you run the response file here, you get response 200, which means that the response is successful. And then let's create another file called data, which will be equal to JSON dot loads response dot content dot decode, and then I write UTF-8. So this is basically a protocol for decoding, and what I'm saying here is please decode the content that is stored into the response. Let's press Shift. So there's an error here. Let's see what the error is. Yeah, so this is because we don't have the JSON implemented. So let's try to add it here. So I'll import JSON, and you can see that now this is understood, and since we didn't have the JSON library, of course we couldn't use the JSON method. And finally let's write data, okay, and you can basically see the same data or the data from the website, but now we can actually use this data inside our program. Okay, so since we're writing Python program, now I can actually assess the actual price of the Bitcoin and perform certain program with those parameters. Okay, so this is quite useful, guys. And the way that we got this information is, first of all, by importing the Python requests library here, then assessing the endpoint and assigning it to a variable that is called URL, then send the get request to the URL. So we say that we want to get the data, and you can see that this request was accepted. And finally, what we did here is we extracted the response that we got from the server into a JSON format, and we use it here. And now this JSON format is completely ready for you to use in your program. But okay, I guess now you're seeing all these files and you're thinking, okay, but how can I use it? How can I, for example, get the exact price of the Bitcoin here? Well, this is quite simple, and I'll actually show it to you right now. Let's write Bitcoin price will be equal to data, okay, and now we want to assess the actual price from the data. This is very simple. Simply write square brackets, and then in parentheses I write BPI. And if you think that BPI is some complex function, no, it is not. This is basically the outer layer here. So we have BPI here, and this means that we now assess this list here, everything inside BPI. So we assess the value of the BPI, which is the whole of this, okay? So now once we're inside, we would like to assess the value USD, okay, which is this one. And now after we assess it, we would like to assess the price of the Bitcoin. So let's write rate and let's write float, okay? So we get it. Actually, the only difference between rate and rate float is that here we're having a little bit better type of number. We don't have the last zero, the last digit zero, which we don't need. So let's do float. Okay, let's run that. And we don't have errors. So in order to print that, you simply need to do Bitcoin price. And as you can see, now you can get a number, an integer of the Bitcoin price. And now you can do basically everything with this number. You can add it in graphs, you can add it in some programs that estimate the Bitcoin, and so on. You can use it for everything you like. And also, if you get the data for how the Bitcoin price is changing throughout the year, you can create a for loop to get every price placed in matrix and then predict what is going to be the future one. So I hope, guys, that this was quite useful for you and show you a practical example how API can actually significantly benefit you as software developer. That's it. Thank you very much for watching that section, and I'm very excited for building the next one and showing you what you can do and the endless world of using the API. Getting started with the development environment. Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about Flask, and we're actually going to start working with our projects for this course. So first of all, let's talk about what Flask actually is. So Flask is a framework that is written in Python. So Flask is actually one of the most basic frameworks, and for that reason it's called a micro framework, completely different for the more complex ones such as Django. So the positive aspects about Flask is that it is very lightweight, and you can basically download extensions if you want additional features, and for the features that you don't like, you don't need to download the extensions, which will additionally slow down your programming process. So once you know what Flask is, let's actually start working with our project. And now until the end of the video, I will actually show you how you can download all the necessary files to start working with the APIs. So let's go to this web address, github.com cloud.bytes.dev/web APIs with Python. Okay, and here you're gonna find the projects that we're going to work with. They're open source, so everybody can download it and use it basically for wherever they like. You can also check out the book related to this project, which is here, and if you want to check it out, this is definitely a very good book if you want to work with Python. The book is not mine, and I don't promote it because I have financial benefit from it. I just think it is a very nice tool for you to learn Python specifically for web API development. So if you would like to check it out, please feel free. Now once you go to this repository, you can select code, and then what I want you to do is to copy it. So let's copy this repository and select fork here. Actually, to do that, I need to go to my GitHub account. Okay. So then you can select the fork and you can clone the actual directory. And now this means it is actually connected to your GitHub account from which you already should have access from the terminal inside your computer. Now, once you do that, you need to create a folder, and I actually already created a folder called API course, and here we're basically going to add all the code that we're going to be using. We'll create different projects and we're going to write on Python in order to update and create better APIs. But as a base, we're going to use this toolkit here. And how you can get it from GitHub automatically, you actually see that in this video. So let's open the terminal. And here what I want you to do is, first of all, to access obviously the folder which will contain your projects. So in my case, my folder is API course. Okay, and here inside now I can actually clone this GitHub repository. So to do that, it is actually very simple. You simply need to write git. Actually, let me increase the size a bit. So what you basically need to do is to write a git clone and then the address. And since you already copied that in your repository, what you need to do is to simply access your GitHub. So I write https://github.com/martinyanev94, which is actually my GitHub username, and then web-apis-with python.git. Okay, so this is your file, guys, and make sure that you type everything correctly, because we're going to look specifically for git clone and specifically for that web address. So hit enter here, and now as you can see, we start copying from GitHub into the local folder. And if I open the folder now, you can see that this file is getting copied here with all the licenses, agreements, and so on. So here in the requirements.txt, basically you get all the necessary packages that you need to install in order to run these projects. And obviously we're not going to install them one by one, but all at the same time, and for that reason we have this file here. So the next thing we need to do is to create a Python virtual environment, so we can actually use Python and manipulate our MPIs with this programming language. So what I need to do here is to write Python 3-m venv for virtual environment and then env. And this is what would you write if you have a Mac, but if you're working on Windows, simply write Python without Python 3. This should do the same thing. But since I'm using Mac, I would write Python 3/-m venv and then environment. Okay, let's hit enter here. Okay, and now we create already a virtual environment, and you can see that if I open this folder, now we have here virtual environment. And actually we did one mistake here, because the environment actually had to be in the folder, so I write it manually, and then I will simply access it. So I will do web APIs with Python. Okay, and when I write LS, I see all the files plus the virtual environment file. Okay, guys, so we're good here. And then after you do that, you would simply need to activate the virtual environment. So again, if you use Windows, you can simply write env/scripts/activate. Okay, but if you're using Mac like me, the code is slightly different. You need to write source env/bin/activate. Okay, so let's run that, and you can see that here in brackets you can see env. So now we're in Python environment already. And the final thing, since we're already in the Python environment, now we can actually install all the packages that we need. So I will do py3 install -r and then requirements.txt. So hit enter here, And you can see that now all the requirements will start installing in your folder. So now we are done, which means that we now have all the necessary packages in order to work with this API. And the last thing, guys, actually we're completely done with the first setup video, but the last things I would like to do is to simply rename this folder, because I don't want this to be with this name. So usually using Mac OS, and it's actually very similar in Windows, you can simply write mv, then the path to your folder, which is this one. So in order to rename your folder, you can either go the hard way from the terminal, but since we want simplicity, I will simply rename my folder from here. And we do that because we don't want to have multiple folders with similar names. So I will do project 1 here, okay. And now if I write os, I can see project 1. So cd project 1, and now we're in our project. So this is everything I wanted to share with you today, guys. This is how you install the basic repository, from which the next step would be to install each and every API depending on the project. So this step you need to do absolutely every time when you want to get a new project. And in the next video I will show you the started kit for this API, and we're going to start writing some Python functions. Thanks for watching. The starter kit. Hello everyone and welcome back to the course. Today I want to talk a little bit more about the projects that we're going to do in this course. As you can see here in front of you, these are all the folders that we will get from GitHub, and we're actually going to use them as our base for manipulating an API. And as you can see, the first thing we will do is to use this hello API using Flask, but you can see we have many other projects here with Flask, and also with different packages that we're going to use with Python. So let's get back to our terminal and let's start our first project. So in order to install the first project, first of all, make sure that you're in the folder project 1, and then do git checkout, then p1-hello api-flask, okay. And then you can see here, switch to a new branch, p1/hello/api-flask. And if I go now to the folder, you can see that here we have some additional file, and this is the app.py file, okay. And here you can see some Python code, which is actually the code of our first API. So let's open that file in the Visual Studio Code and let's see what is basically inside. So I open the VS Code and let's select open, and we're actually going to open the whole project. So API course project 1, select open here. Yes, I trust the authors. And now you can see all the files in the project on your left hand side. Select api.py and you can see here a simple API. So the file app.py is basically the starter template of your API. And here in the to do, you can see basically what are going to be the tasks for us in order to create some functional API. So what we're going to aim by the end of this section is to be able to capture the first and the last name of a person. If the name is not provided, to respond with error. If the first name is not provided and the second name is provided, to respond in certain way, hello Mr. and then the last name. Then if the first name is provided, to respond in another way. And finally, if both names are provided, to respond in a different way. Okay, so this will be some sort of a looping and statements in order to achieve that, but we're very far from it yet. So now let's take a close look at this section. So going to the first part of our code, we can see that firstly here we're importing some libraries. So from the Flask library we import Flask, JSON file and request libraries, and this basically enables us to process our data in the right format and also create web requests, but later in the course we're going to talk about this in more detail. Then we're initializing the app with the Flask command here. Okay, so here we're running the Flask library. Okay, and we store the variable in the app. And here what we're doing is we're overwriting the get keyword with this greet addition after our link. And I'm sure that for most of you, what I'm talking to you right now, what is that link, what's going on, I mean, probably you don't understand anything, but we're going to try this very quickly and you understand what I mean. But of course, since it's already too much information in that video, let's continue in the next one. So there I will show you how you can actually run this code and get the API in your browser. That's it. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and we'll continue in the next video. The Flask API. Hello everyone, as I promised in the previous video, today I will show you how you can actually run your first API program in Python. So to do that, actually there is one very nice option in the VS Code, but let's first run the code. Okay, and once you run this file here, you can see that here in the console you are actually having a terminal. Okay, and make sure that in this terminal you're in environment and you're in the right folder. Okay, so you're in your folder project 1 and you're using the Python environment. So now you can simply write here Flask run. Okay, so once you run the Flask, you can see that here is written running on HTTP 127.0.0.1, and this is obviously the IP address of the API that you just created, and you can access from the web because now you're emitting this IP address. And actually, if you're more interested about what IP addresses are, how they are formed, what are the different protocols, then I definitely want to invite you to take my Python for network programming course, which will make all those topics completely clear for you. But even without it, you're completely able to cope with the rest of the APIs here. So let's open a browser. So once you open the browser, let's go to this IP address. Actually, you can even copy it if you're lazy. So if I copy this browser right now and I select it, you can see here that we see not found, the request URL was not found on the server. Well, this is exactly the case simply because we actually don't have any information on this specific address. But this is the reason why we wrote the word greet. So the word greet here means that after our link we would need to provide a slash and then write the word greet, right? And once we provide this word, obviously here you see to do, because we can see here the task to do, but now I can actually make this a fully functional greeting message by simply removing the to do from here, and I will actually remove even the greet keyword, and we can simply use the slash here. Okay, and let's just return here hello world. Okay, and instead of app.get we'll do app.route. Okay, so let's save that now, and I will actually stop the API so we can restart it. And you can usually stop the API by selecting Ctrl and C, so you can see that now the API stopped. And if I run this again, you can see that we cannot find anything on the web. So let's write again Flask run, and now if I go to the greet page, we see nothing because we simply didn't define the greet page. But if I do only a slash after the IP address and I select this, you can see the message that we just wrote, which is hello world. So do you wonder what just happened? Well, we simply asked Flask to listen for our route, or just for this backslash here, which requests to go down the route of the IP address. And if you would write here greet, for example, greet, and then I close the API and I save this and I run the API again. So if I write here greet, well, here we're going down the road on the API and we're going to the greet message,
which is hello world. And once we request some data from the grid, then this def index is basically determining how our page is going to respond. And in this case, we're returning hello world. And here's how the instructions for executing the program follow after this def index message here. So with simple words, when you open this address in internet, the browser sent a get message to the IP address /grid. And after that, we captured the listener, and the listener started looking for instructions on app.route, which consisted of the function defIndex. And since defIndex was displaying the hello world, this means that this is exactly what we're going to get in our function. Now, let's actually expand a little bit your skills, because I also want you to learn how to open this address like a real programmer, not simply from the browser. So in that case, we will need, of course, to access our beloved terminal. And here I will be in the project 1 folder, which is the project that we're currently running. So simply write curl -i -x and then the IP address. So this will be http 127.0.0.1 column 5000/grid. Okay, actually let me remove those parentheses here. So we're writing curl -i-x. Don't forget the get keyword here, so we're getting what we need from the address. And then we simply write http, actually // and then our address. So let's hit enter, and you can see that we're getting response 200, which means okay, this is not an error. Then we get the contact type, which is our encryption. Then we get the length of what we see. We get the programming language, and finally we get the word, which is hello world. So this is how you can access actually the API from the terminal, which is, I guess, quite useful for you, especially if you want some high-level access to your code and to the outcome of your code. So this was everything, guys, I want to share with you for this video. This is actually a very good and massive start for you, so you can be able later on to develop more complex APIs. That's it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Using JSON in your API. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the course. In today's video, I want to show you something very important for working with APIs, and this is basically how you can transfer your data into a JSON format. This is quite important because in most of the applications you would want your data to have some structure. And to be honest, hello world with exclamation marks doesn't have much of a structure. So let me show you how you can do that. It is really, really simple, but we will need to change our app.py file here. So since the last time I was running this application here, and now I will have to stop it, so I will write Ctrl+C here in the terminal. Okay, so now the application is stopped, and let's do some changes now in the application so we can actually add some structure. So as you can see, we already actually added the JSON file function here, but we never used it. So let's change here app.get. And I will leave the grid message because I would like to add some additional keyword after the slash so we can assess our output. And then instead of return hello world, we're actually going to add something different. So first of all, I will add a variable called response equals, and here in brackets I will write data, okay, column, and then hello world. Okay, so this is going to be our data variable, and let's leave the parentheses closed. And finally here we're going to return, okay, return JSON file, okay, and I write response Okay, so this is the response that we just created, and this means that the file here that we added in a JSON format will actually be converted to JSON by this JSON5 function here. And this is how we're converting this Python dictionary into a JSON response using the JSON file. So let's go back to our terminal, okay, and let's run this programmatically. So I write curl -i -x get, and then http /127.0.0.1 and then double dot 5000, then write an r/ and write greet. Okay, actually don't run this command yet because we didn't actually start our file yet. So let's write, and actually let's first save this, and from the terminal let's write Flask run. Okay, so now our API is running, and now let's go from the terminal and hit enter here, and you can see that after hitting the enter button you get that we have a successful response. Our type is JSON, the length is 26 characters, we use Python, we get the date, and also you can see in completely JSON format our data. So this is the way that you structure your data in a very good way using the JSON format. And I know that today we did quite simple example, but trust me, when you deal with millions and billions lines of data, having it in the right format will definitely improve your search. And if you remember our Bitcoin example and how easily we assessed the Bitcoin price using the JSON format, you can definitely find the benefit of structuring your data. That's it. Thank you very much for watching that video, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Requesting arguments. Hello everyone, and welcome to this more advanced section of the course. And basically here we're going to expand and learn new capabilities of what we were studying in the past section. So let's get started. So what we're going to learn here is how to make our API interactive. And this is very important and will bring us one step closer to what was our aim, namely to make the API respond depending on what inputs we send to it. So you will see how this is done. Now, if you remember from our previous videos, our mission with this project was actually to ask the user for his name by entering the link, and we're obviously going to start first with doing the step 3. So I will show you how you can actually pass a name or a random variable to the API, and this is very similar to how you actually search for things in Google. In that way you're providing the word that you're searching into the link, and this is how Google knows which words to search. And actually I'll give you one hint in this course. In some of the next sections, and actually I will try to do it this section, we're going to create a completely functional Google search using the same method. So please pay attention now. Now the first thing is, let's stop the API that is currently running. And what I will do here is, obviously I remove these lines, or actually, you know what, let me just comment them out and let's write under them. So imagine, actually let's leave them behind. Now here in the index function, let's write name equals request, and here I will write dot args dot get, and here I write name. Okay, then let's write response will be equal to, and here we're again gonna create a JSON format. So I write data column, and then here write f in order to format what's gonna be in the next sections. Hello, comma, actually here I would like to have parentheses. Okay, so hello, comma, and then name, and let's put an exclamation mark here. Okay, so as you can see here, we're basically using the name that we already defined. Okay, so what this means is that here we're going to get the name, and this will happen from the IP address of the API. And once we get the name, we're basically going to pass it here to this function, and this function supposedly should say hello and the name. Okay, and now finally we would like to return something in order for the user to see. So I will do return, then JSON file, so it is in JSON format, and then let's write response. Okay, that's great. So let's save that and let's run our API. So on terminal, simply write run Flask run the other way around, and now we started. Okay, so let's go to this address, and you can see that actually here what we see is hello none, and this is because we didn't add actually any parameters here, and for that reason you see none. But now let's change that by writing greet, then question mark, okay, then name, and here is the time that you can actually add a value for the name, a value that you would like to send to the API. So I write as a name Martin. Okay, so let's hit enter here, and you can see that now we see hello Martin, and this is because on the place of the name now we make it equal to Martin, and the value of the name is no longer none. And you can actually do the same thing if you access this from the terminal. So let me show you how it's done. You can simply write curl -x get, and then http://127.0.0.1 column 5000, then /greet question mark equals actually name equals Martin, and let's hit enter here. And here we found no matches, but I think I know the reason. This is because here now we need to put some parentheses. Okay, let's hit enter now, and we're getting an error because I need to remove the S, so it's HTTP. Okay, so now you can see that we actually got a response in JSON format, which is hello Martin. So remember, always when you have parameters, you need to write parentheses here. Okay, and if you want to get some more information here, you can also write -i. Okay, so once you write -i, you can actually get not only the name, but you also get the type of response, the type of format of the file, the length of the string, and the programming language that was used. And I advise to do that because it is definitely very convenient to see what's working in the background of this program. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching that video. I really appreciate it. You are one step forward to make your own API and completely understand how this works. Thank you very much for watching, and in the next video we're going to talk about how to detect errors and how to deal with them using APIs. Thanks for watching. Capturing errors. Hi guys, and welcome back to the course. Today we're going to talk about errors. And let's actually do one experiment. So let's go to the terminal and write the command that we wrote in the previous video. You can see it here in front of you, but instead of name, let's write fname. And if I write fname, you can see that we get hello none, and this means that to the value of name we don't have assigned anything, and this is pretty confusing, right? And this is true especially if you write very long codes. So to solve that issue, we're creating arrows which are way more informative for the users. So let me show you how you can do that. We'll write a simple code that will ensure that the name variable has the correct value, and if not, we would send an error message. So let's go back to our code, and here is the code that we actually wrote in the last video. And let's add a very simple line here. So we wrote name equals request.args.getName, and let's write if not name, okay, or if the name will be equal to false, then we'll return JSON file, and we can state an error by writing status column and then simply write error. That's it. Let's create a space here so we can distinguish between the different indentation levels, and you can see that here we're creating a name, but if we do not pass value to the name, we will return and we'll enter this if statement here, and we will return an error. So let's run the code again, guys, and let's see what happens. So I will first save this and I will stop the previous run, and let's write Flask run here. Okay, so now we're running the API. So let's do it from the terminal actually. So simply write curl-i-x, then go to our IP address, and then instead of name write fname equals Martin. Hit enter, and you can see that now instead of none here, right, which was automatically created from the program, now we have a customly created error here, and we're getting that we have error. Okay, obviously instead of error you can basically send any message. So for example here, if I write instead of error please provide a name, and I save it and I rerun everything, you can see that when I select this, we're getting please provide a name. So this is a good way the user to know what he or she is missing, because simply getting the result none doesn't basically say anything, doesn't say if we have an error, and doesn't say what we need to do in order to solve the error, which specifically in the very big scripts it is very, very important. So don't underestimate the error detection, it is quite important. So I hope you paid a good attention to that video. That's it, guys. I really appreciate that you followed this lecture with me. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Multi-argument API. Hi guys, and welcome back to the course. Today we're actually going to accomplish our final goal for the project we're currently doing. And the goal is to create an API where if Martin, myself, or you can write your name, if Martin contacts the API and he includes inside only his first name, the API will return hello Martin. If Martin provides his last name, then it will return hello Mr. Yanev, which is my last name. And finally, if the user, or in that case Martin, provide both of his names, then the API should return is your name Martin Yanev. Okay, so we already gained a lot of knowledge and you're completely ready to create this even on your own. So actually, if you want, try to pause the video and do this on your own. I think it is quite worth it. But of course, you're not obligated to do that. We're still learning. So if you want, you can follow with me until to the rest of the video until we create this function. So let's go back to our app.py and let's create some logic here. So I will delete everything so far. I will just leave the def index, and just under it we'll write. So obviously here we'll need two variables. Fname for first name, so fname, okay, which will be equal to request.args.get, and here I will write fname. Okay, this is going to be the name of the variable, and then lname, which is actually your last name, and this will be equal to request.args.get, and here obviously write l name for last name. Okay, so now the arguments first name and last name are stored in these variables, and I want you to make a difference between the variable we select here and the variable we select here. So in the get function, this f name is what we're actually writing in our address or in our IP, okay? And f name is a local variable that stores the information that you provided to the f name. So for example, if my first name is Martin, then Martin will be stored in the f name variable here. So first of all, let's write our error detection. So I write if not f name and not l name. So if we don't provide first and last name, then we would like to display that there is an error. So we'll return JSON file. Okay, and here I write first I write status, okay, and then I write error. Okay, so we know that our status is error. Now, if this is not the case, so elif, okay, f name and not l name, okay, this means that we would like to go to our first case where we say hello Mr. and then the name of the user. So I write response, so response will be equal to data, then column, and here we write f, and in the parentheses hello, and then in the brackets here f name. Okay, let's close them and let's write exclamation mark. So we say hello, then the first name and exclamation mark. Okay, pretty simple. Now let's write another elif. So elif not f name and l name. So this is the case where we wrote only the last name. Then in that case, we would like to create a response, and this response will be obviously equal to a different thing. So let's write data, okay, and then here f parentheses, and in the parentheses we write hello, comma, Mr. And then here we will provide the L name or the last name of the user or the person that we entered the name for. Let's write exclamation mark here. Okay, and finally, and in Python the final bit of the if statement is else, as actually it is in most of the programming languages. And finally we will write response. So in any other case, and the only case that is left is that we write both of the names at the same time. So response will be equal to data and then column f, and here we write is your name, and here I write f name, then space and l name, and then you can write a question mark, for example. Okay, this seems right. And finally, obviously we need to display the input, so we'll return, okay, return JSON file and then response. Okay, let's save that, and I will close the previous session and let's run Flask. Okay, so you can see that now our service is running, and let's now go to the terminal and actually call the MPI. So let's write curl -i -x and then http column /127.0.0.1 column 5000 / greet question mark f name equals Martin, and here and we write with this symbol, and l name equals mpyanev. Okay, let's close this. And here we get an error, URL not specified, and this is because we had to write the get command. So let me write it here. Get. Okay, let's run it. And you can see that obviously all the information because we wrote -i, but the important thing is the output is your name mpyanev. Okay, so let's try the other cases. So let me actually remove the last name but use only the first name. You can see that here, yes, we have that case, and here we write hello Martin. And then if I write only the last name, so I write here L name, okay, then we'll enter the if statement in the bit where we say hello Mr. So I will get hello Mr. Yanev. Okay, so this is how you can add some logic and manipulate the API how you like. And finally, let's test the final case. The final case would be if we don't have anything. And if we don't add anything here, you can see that our status is error, which means that every bit of our code has been completed successfully. That's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching that video. I hope you learned quite a lot. And actually here we completed our first task for the course. Thank you very much for watching, and follow the rest of the videos because we're closer and closer to develop our first Google Search API. That's it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. URL and query string. Hi guys, and welcome back to the course. In today's video, we're going to start by learning more specifically what is URL, why we use it, and what is query string. So as you probably know, or maybe you don't, URL is Uniform Resource Locator. And what it basically does, it leads us to a web address, okay, to an address in the web. So it basically acts as a reference to a source that is located on a specific computer network, and basically provides us a mechanism to retrieve that source and actually use it for our own purpose. So a URL contains the following things. It contains a protocol, and the protocol usually is HTTP, and the more secured version that is used these days, HTTPS. Then it uses a domain name, for example, google.com, youtube.com, facebook.com, and so on. The username is specific name that is provided to the specific location that you want to access. And once you access the domain name, then the domain can have different pages. So this page could be the index PHP page, it could be some HTML page, it could be a custom page that you created. Okay, if you check the URL of different websites, depending on which specific location you're in the website, you are accessing different pages, and these pages will be accessible with slash and the name of the page. And finally, you have the query, which is basically something that you should be already familiar with. And these are things that you can access with question mark, the name of query, and the value of the query. And this is the way you're basically using the Google search and basically everything else that has something to do with sorting data based on certain standard. And actually, if you have a look at google.com, you can see that even though this is the most famous and the company that holds the website is one of the richest companies in the world, well, even here there is no difference, right? So when you go to Google, you go to google.com, which is a domain, the HTTPS is the protocol, then you do slash search, which is the page, then you do question mark Q, which is the variable of the query, and the value of the query is the search words that you're looking for. And for example, if you want to look at the Bitcoin price, then it searches for the words Bitcoin plus price, and this is how you get what you need to search in Google. This is a specific parameter. And talking about Google search, actually this is the topic of the next videos, where we're going to create fully functional Google search and page. So let's get started, and let me show you how this is done. So here we are, guys, in our terminal, and let's do cd, and let's go back with the 2 dots. And if you write os, you can see that now you're in your folder where you sort your projects. So what I'm gonna do is now I'm gonna install a different project that is called Bioc Flask, and let's install it. So we'll install it in the similar way how we did our previous tasks. So the first thing I will do is I will create another folder with the same repository. So let's write git clone https, and then let's write github.com/mpyanev94, but here you should write your username, okay, in the folder that you actually copied this repository, and then the name of the repository will be the same for all of us since we copied it from the same place. So I will do apis dash with dash python.git. Okay, let's select that, and you can see that again you're copying the same repository. So let's wait a bit, and then we can install the rest of the packages that we need. Okay, so the installation is done, and let's enter the folder. Actually, before that, let me actually rename it because I don't want all the folders to have the same name. So this will be project 2. So let's do cd project 2, and here now you simply need to write python 3 -m vnv env, okay, to create a Python environment. And this is for Mac users. Again, for Windows users is Python without the 3. So for Windows users it would look something like that. So let's run that, and if I write os, you can see that the environment, the Python environment, is now created. And now let's install all the packages necessary for us in order to execute this code. So now we have Python environment, but we need all the packages needed to run the Flask. But before that, let's actually run the environment. Actually, as you can see here, we are already in Python environment, but this is from the previous project. So I close this window so we can do it from the beginning and you can see how it works. So I will do terminal, and then let me increase the size, okay, and I will do cd API course, and then cd project 2, and here I write, let's actually check first. Okay, we have the environment, so we can write source env /bin /activate. Okay, so you can see that now the environment from that folder is activated. And then what you need to do is to install actually all the requirements, or this is actually this file here that contains all the packages needed. So I will do pipe 3 install -r and then requirements.txt. Let's hit enter, and you can see that we are collecting all the packages that were collected in the text file. Okay, so now they are also installed in your folder, I suppose in the environment folder here. And after you do that, now it is time to actually copy the specific project that we were talking about. So let's do git checkout and then p2 /bioc /flask. Let's run it, and you can see that now you switch to new branch p2 /bioc -flask. And if I do ls, you can see that here we have some new files. So we have the app.py, we have the static file, and we have the templates file as well. So this was the most important thing for you guys to do today. Now you have the package installed, and in the next video we're going to observe what this package contains and we're gonna start it. That's it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Working with the URL kit. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the course. Today I want to talk a little bit about what the package and the project that we downloaded contains. So obviously it contains the app.py, okay, which is basically the Python code that manipulates the data in our project, but it also contains some other things. So it contains the template file, which contains the index HTML, and HTML, this is basically the Google page that you're going to see, okay? Since we're displaying a Google page, obviously we need some sort of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files, in order to be able to display it for fully functional page and implement the Python code on the web. Okay, I know it might sound a little bit complex, but this is actually the only way to transfer Python to the web, because all the web pages are a combination of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript codes. So you need this base in order to then manipulate those pages with Python. Okay, and as I said, templates contain the HTML page, and the static basically contains the CSS file and the logo of Google, right? Or the picture that is going to be displayed there. So let's actually go to the folder and have a look at those files. So you can see templates is actually your page, and in the static you can see the logo, which is the Google logo, and the CSS file. So I'm gonna open it so you can see. So I have a very nice editor called Sublime Text, with which you can display those things in quite nice way. So you can see that here, this is absolutely nothing complicated, but what we're displaying here is basically the height, the way we display it, the margins, and so on of the different elements that we have on the screen. You can see here we display body, we display buttons, and so on. And actually, let me also show you the HTML file here. By the way, if you're interested in HTML and CSS and basically in web development, definitely check out my web development GSAP course, which goes over each of those topics, and you have very good understanding on what HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are. So you can see here we're defining the search bar, which is the the Google search bar, and we do this from absolute scratch, right? So here we define the best fields, and here we design them in the CSS file, and then in the logo we basically use this picture here, the picture logo. We use it in our code in order to make the typical Google appearance. Okay, so this is about the HTML and the CSS files we display. Okay, this is not that complex, and except that we have the app.py file, which is our Python code. So knowing all those things, guys, actually doesn't seem so complicated to create a web page from our computer using API. Now, this is the previous project, so I'm gonna exit, and I'm actually going to open a new project, okay? And this time I'm gonna open project 2, select open here, select that you trust to the author, and let's select the app file, and you can see that this is fairly simple file that it looks, and basically runs the page. And even now, if you run actually the file, we can do it actually from the terminal. So if you do here Flask run, now you can see that your server is running, okay? And sometimes I notice that if I run the code before doing Flask run, you might get an error here because you might not access the Python environment. So the Flask package will not be recognized since you're not in Python environment. So make sure that here you have env, which means that you're in Python environment, and then run Flask run from here. So let's go on the web and let's try some of those commands and see what we're gonna get. So you can see our starting point in this project. It is way far from completion, so you need to do a lot of work. So let's use this link, and I will do this link here /grid, which actually we don't have. So instead I will actually do search. Okay, so basically see nothing here. You just see the to do or our tasks, and also if I do just slash, you also see to do. right? Because we didn't add actually any information yet. And here you can see our tasks. So here what we need to do is to render the page that is provided in the templates index.html. Okay, this is the front page of the website. Okay, and then here in the search, our aim is to capture the word that is being searched and to search Google for that word, basically to create a fully functional Google search with this code. So I don't want to overwhelm you more for this video, guys. I think it's already enough for today, but bear with me in the next one, where we're going to complete each and every of those tasks and we're going to create our fully functional Google search. That's it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Creating a Google search. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the course. As I promised you in the past few videos, we're actually going to create a Google search in this course, and actually this is just the beginning of the amazing things that we're going to do. So the tasks for today are the following. We're going to render the HTML homepage of Google, then we're going to create and submit a send API request as a GET request, then we're going to create a query with a keywords that we write in the search, and then the search will be executed in Google. So we're actually going to be able to search the words that we're looking for. So let's get started. So the only thing we will do here is to basically modify the app.py, and the first thing we will do is to basically display the template of Google. Okay, so in order to display an HTML file, you can simply write or return. Okay, actually I remove this return here. So return space render template, and this is already a known function, and simply inside you need to write the name of the function. So this is going to be index.html. Okay, so let's save that, and I will rerun the Flask run. Okay, so now we run our website with the index.html. So let's go to our web browser and let's go to the same browser as before. So now here, guys, you can see the Google HTML, you can see our search, and you can see these buttons, I'm feeling lucky, and Google search, and all of those things we already defined in our HTML and CSS files, all those buttons and the search as well. So now let's try actually doing some search, and let's select these buttons. For example, you know, for Google, when you select I'm feeling lucky button, you're basically searching random things. But if I select it here, I'm basically seeing to do, right? Or this means that I'm seeing nothing. And this means that actually, when I select the I'm feeling lucky, I'm sending it to the link /search, and then I start the Google query. But since here we're not having anything, we're returning the to do keyword, and for that reason we cannot find basically anything, right? So we need to define what happens when we enter the /search page, right? And if you select the Google search, you're basically going to be sent to the same place. So we definitely need to change that, and the only thing to do it is by writing more code. So this is actually so simple that you can even not imagine. And what I'm gonna do right now is I will simply write args. Actually, let me make it full screen. So I write args equals request dot args dot get, and what we want to get here is the queue, right? Because let me again go to the page, because obviously when I go to I'm feeling lucky, we automatically go to search queue, and this is basically our variable to which we need to provide value in order to search. So obviously we're going to get what is assigned to that variable, and we're going to assign things to this variable with our Google search, where we're going to enter keywords, right? So now let's write return, okay, return redirect, and here once we add something as an argument for Q, then we would like to add these arguments to the actual Google website. So I will do F HTML, or actually HTTP s, then / google.com/search, and here we're going to enter the query Q equals args. Okay, very simple. So let me actually add some brackets here, and so the args holds all the arguments assigned to Q, and obviously here we want to pass them to our address, so they're going to be displayed after Q, and they're going to be sent to google.com. Okay, very simple. Let's save that and let's try our Google search. So let me do Ctrl+C. Okay, and then let's run this. So let's go to our link, which is 127.0.0.1, and then we'll go to our Google search, as you can see, and let's type something, cat pictures. Okay, so let's select the Google search, and you can see that here we're directly redirected to Google, and we're searching for cat pictures. Okay, you can see that the command of the query is cat %20 and then pictures. Okay, if I do just cat, for example, okay, here you are searching cat in Google. Okay, and the query is simply Q equals cat, right? This is exactly what we passed here. So this is how you create your custom Google search, guys. I'm sure that you didn't expect how easy this task is going to be. That's it. Thank you very much for watching. And in the next sections, we're going to talk about how you can build an entire dictionary using APIs, and there we would write way longer scripts and way more lines of code, so you really need to be concentrated, and this is going to be probably one of the most important sections that you will see in this course, and it will prepare you for the next very exciting projects. That's it. Thank you very much for watching this section, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Dictionary API project overview. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the course. As I continuously promise you, in this course you are going to develop interesting API projects, and in that way you understand the structure of the API like never before. And as we're continuing to do that, after we already created the Google search engine, now today in this section I want to introduce you to a different type of API, and this is going to be a dictionary API. And what it will basically be doing is it will actually act as the famous Google dictionary, and the main aim of it would be when you select a word, it will actually tell you the meaning of that word. So what we want from the API that we're going to be building in this section is to respond with an exact match of the word that is requested, also to respond with approximate matches of the word, and this would happen if you write a word that is not very popular, so it should give you some assumptions on what this word could mean. And finally, in the final videos of this section, we're actually going to upgrade our dictionary and enable it to work with not one but multiple words. So you will be able to send a request for multiple words, and you're going to get the description or transcription of that words one by one. But before that, obviously we need to actually install this API in our computers, and if you watch the previous sections which I advise you to do, this will already be a piece of cake for you. So let's pull up a terminal and let's navigate to our project directory, which for me is API course. And here we're going to do what we're actually doing in every project. We're actually going to first go to GitHub, so I will do git clone, and you should already have the main repository inside your GitHub account. So I will do http github.com here, and then I would write my username, but in your case you would like to write your username, so mine is mpyanev 94. And after that you need to write web slash APIs slash with slash Python dot git. Okay, so let's hit enter here, and you can see that we actually got an error, and I can see what the error is. It's actually due to the fact that I didn't add slash between my username and the com statement. So let's hit it again, and now you can see that we're actually cloning this directory inside your folders. And actually I'm gonna open the projects folder right now so you can see what's happening there. So you can see that now we got the web-apis with Python, and I will rename the file to be project3. Okay, and in this project obviously we're going to be creating the dictionary. So let's do cd double dot and then os. Okay, so let's go back to the API course. Let's do os here, and you can see that we have all the projects. So let's enter project3 into os. So you can see the main files here, and now what we need to do is to install the dictionary project. So to do that, first of all, we need to start and install here Python environment. So I will do python 3 -m v env. Okay, and I know that I repeat this all the time, but I want this to be accessible for people that specifically want to check that section. If you're using Windows, you can remove 3 from Python 3, and this will mean the same thing basically. And I'm saying that because I'm using Mac, that's why. And then let's write source env /bin /activate. And again, if you're using Windows, this will also be different for you. You can check actually how we install our first project, and there I'm actually showing you how you can do that for Windows. It's slightly different statement here. And what we're doing right now is simply trying to actually activate the environment file that we already created. So you can see that now here we get env. So we're in the Python environment, and if I do os, you can see that we get the env folder, which contains all the basic Python files here. And the final thing I will do is to install all the packages needed for that project, which are stored in the requirements.txt. So I will do pipe3 install -r and then requirements.txt, hit enter, and you can see that now all the packages that need to be installed are actually installing in your repository or directory actually. And you can see that they are completely done. And I also get a message that actually I need to update my pipe, but I will do that later on. So once we install the files and everything, we can actually include a specific repository that we need to use in the specific project, because we actually didn't do it yet. You can do that by git checkout, and then the name of the project is p3 dictionary /a API /Flask. Hit enter here, and you can see that now we're switched to branch and the name that we just wrote. So let's do os and see what's new here. So you can see that now we have the app.py, which is the Python file. Then you get the model file here. Okay, actually let's go to the folder. So you can see the model files here, and this is again a Python file, and the header file here is actually containing the application logic and handles all the data that we pass to our API. So let's open it, and you can see that there are several functions here, and basically this file is called MVC. The first one stands for model, the second one stands for view, and this is basically how we view our application, and the final one stands for controller, which basically manages the interaction between the header file, which is this one, and the application file, which is app.py, and that you're familiar with. Okay, and then you have the dictionary, which is in the data dictionary.db, and obviously it's a database, and this is basically an SQL file, and the closest thing I can open it with is actually with text editor. But you can see that here there are actually many different words and their explanations. you cannot understand anything, which is normal, but this is actually the database that we're going to access when we want to check a specific word. Now let's go to the application file so we can talk a little bit about the logic of the whole application that we're building. So I'll go to Visual Studio Code and I'll actually open the directory that we're using. So let's open project 3, trust the authors, of course. And now you can see the folder here. So let's open the app.py, and here you can see a few functions. Obviously we can see the slash function and then the slash dict function. So basically here in the first method, in the index method, we're going to handle the incoming requests, and we're going to basically use this response here. And actually I'm gonna update this method right now, so you can remove the hashtag here. So this method is recognized, and then what we're going to return is obviously this request. So this response. So what we can do is return response, and actually we would like to return the response into the JSON format. So I will simply do JSON-fi, and then I'll write brackets. So we'll return the response in JSON format. Let's save that. Okay, so that's everything, guys, I want to share with you for this video. Now you have the project and everything set up, and in the next video I will show you how you can actually handle the searches that the users will do in the browser or from the terminal. That's it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. FastAPI, handle searches. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the section. Today we're going to learn how to handle the searches, the initial searches, when we're using our dictionary API. So the very first thing we need to do, obviously, before adding some description of the word that we're searching for, is basically enable our program to accept the word that is being searched. And this is because the main idea of our application is to handle not just a single but many words that we're searching at the same time. So to build a logic that handles a simple word, we can simply do word equals request.args.get and then the word. Then what we would like to do is to build a simple check where we will see if actually some value has been assigned to word, and if no value has been assigned, or if a value that is not acceptable has been assigned, we will say that there is no valid word or no word provided. Okay, so we would like this error check, as I told you in the past, that enables the user to understand actually what's the problem and why the application is actually not working. And obviously after we do all this, we would like to find some matches with the database that we already have in order to provide a good description of the word. Now let's go to the Visual Studio where we will start editing the code there. Now let's go now here into the app.py, and as we already edited the get function here, we actually don't need to do anything about it right now, but there's quite a few work that we need to do into the dictionary function. So as you saw already on the presentation, first of all we need to define a word. So let's do word equals request dot args dot get, and then we'll do word. Okay, and obviously here this is what is going to be written after the IP address of our API, and then the value will be assigned to the keyword word. Now once we have that, we'll do the sanity check as I told you. So we'll do if not word, then what we would like to do is to return in JSON format, so JSON-fi, and actually I noticed that here I did a typo because it's JSON-fi. Okay, and after that let's add brackets, and here inside what the JSON format, so I write status error, so our status will be error, and also data will say word not found. Okay, so this is in case that we couldn't find our word or some error happened while we were doing the word. Now the next thing we will do is, after we have the word that was set up, we would like to find the exact match of this word. So I will do definitions equals match exact, and then we'll try to match the word that we just assigned. Okay, and then we'll say if there is a definition, so if definitions, then we like to return in JSON 5 format. Okay, we would like to return first of all a status success, so status success. Okay, actually I noticed that I'm writing outside the parentheses. Okay, so our status will be success, and after that let's write a comma here. We'll do data, and the data will show definitions. Okay, definitions that we matched here the word, and after we look for exact match, then we'll try to find an approximate match if the word doesn't exactly matches what we have in the database. And this is quite useful because you don't always write the exact word that you are searching for inside a search, right? So in that case we would like also to have a possible solution. So for that reason I will do if. Actually first we are going to update the definition, so I will do definitions equals, and in Python to try matches an approximate part of a word, you just do match like function, very simple, and then you simply write here word. Okay, and I will write here if definitions, then return JSON file, and here in the brackets I will do again status. Okay, so our status will be partial, and then we'll do data, and our data will give us the definitions keyword, so definitions. Okay, and after that, once we return that, let's do else here, and in the else statement we'll also add a statement showing that the word is whether found or not. So if we have everything else, we'll return JSONify, and here the status will be status. Okay, will be error, so this in the case we don't find any word, and then we have again data will be equal to word not found. Okay, so this is how we ensure that we have the proper errors. And finally let's run this function, so I will do if, or actually I think we have this here already, so I remove that, and if name equals main, run app, and app is the whole this application. Okay, let's save that. So once we are done, let's actually test our changes. So let's run our code here. So first of all, in the terminal you can see that we already assessed the environment, and I will just write Flask run. Okay, and you can see that we run the server already. So here is our server, and if you just assess it like this, you will basically get the usage statement, which is here. Okay, so this is if you just enter like that, and this will tell you what you need to add specifically. However, if I want to check a word, for example, you can simply write slash, then dict, then question mark word equals hello, and if I do it, you can see that the data that we got is actually called to do, and the status is assess. So as you can see here, we're not getting the word, so actually let's change that. And here in definitions I will add another variable called word, and the word will be equal to the word that we actually added, so I write word here. And actually I will do absolutely the same thing in the line below. Let's add it. And now if we rerun our application and we go to the website, you can see that if you assessed the word hello, you're also getting the exact word that you are looking for. Obviously the data equals to do is something wrong, and obviously we need to try fighting with that, but we're getting that because we haven't implemented our models yet, and soon we're going to do it, and you'll see the exact translation, or actually the exact description of the word that we are adding. That's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching that video, and I will see you in the next one. Finding words definition. Hello everyone, as I promised last time, today we're going to learn how to find the definition of the specific word that you added in your dictionary. And last time we learned how to look for the word and how to basically add it in our search, in our query here. but now I want to actually also display the definition of this word. So to do that, what we need to do is to establish a connection with our directory and then extract matches for the exact word that we are searching for. And if not, we would like to do a very close connections to that word that we are searching in our database. And once we do all that, we will return a response with the specific description for that word. That's it. It sounds actually very simple, and you will see that it actually is, especially with Python. So let's go back to our IDE and I will show you how it's done. And in order to accomplish that, let's go to model folder, and in model folder, let's go to db header py, and you can see here that you already have the match exact and the match like functions, and these are at the moment completely dummy functions because here you don't have anything except of returning the to do keyword. Okay, so we need to change that and actually make them assess the list of descriptions we have for each and every word. So in both functions, we actually need to do quite similar things. So we need to establish connection with the database. We need to find the query for the exact matches for the exact match here, and also to clone the connection to the database. So once we know all this, let's actually delete what's been written here so far. And let's try to access the database. So first of all, let's create a variable that will actually refer to the database. So I will do db equals SQL, which is our database, dot connect, and then I will do data. Actually, let me put that in parentheses. So data slash dictionary dot db. Okay, in dictionary.db, if you see here, it is basically the database located in the data file. That's why we do data slash, so we can access the folder, and then we access our database. Okay, and then let's do SQL underscore query equals select multiplied from entries where word equals question mark. Okay, and this is a statement that we're actually going to be using to access the SQL database, and this is something typical for the SQL programming language. Okay, so once we have that, I will do match equals db dot execute, and then let's write here SQL underscore query, the one that we just added, comma word, so the word that we have. Okay, and I will leave comma here, dot fetch all. Okay, let's do that, and let's add the brackets here since this is a function. Okay, so this is our query for the exact matches in the database, and finally we're going to close the database by writing db dot close. Okay, and we're going to return our match, or this is basically going to be the description of our keyword, so we'll return match. Okay, now let's create our match like function, and this is actually going to be pretty similar to the previous one with just a few small differences. So let's do db equals SQL dot connect, and here in the brackets I will add data slash dictionary. Okay, so basically this is the same thing like we wrote up there, actually dictionary dot db, because it's the name of the file. And then actually this is the different part. I will do here SQL underscore query equals, and here in the parentheses let's write select multiply sign from entries, and here we'll do where word like. Okay, and this like part is basically what is changing everything. And finally I will do match equals db dot execute, and here in the brackets I will write SQL underscore query comma, and then let's write here percent sign plus word plus again percent sign, and then we'll do dot fetch all. Okay, so we're ready with our match, and finally let's do return match again. Okay, and just before that, actually I missed it. You need to actually close the database, obviously, so I will do db dot close. Okay, and we're ready here as well. So let's now, guys, run the application and go to our terminal and see if it is going to work. So I will run by Flask run. Okay, and now let's open a terminal. Okay, so this is our terminal, and here we're in the right folder. So let's simply write curl -x get, and here let's type the IP, so it will be http:/120.0.0.0.1, then 5000 /dict $word equals data. So you can see that once we wrote this, you see data, and you can see that none of those is the full description of the word, and this is because data have multiple matches with the different words. So here you can see datum, and here you can see of datum. So instead of data, if we actually do data r, and you can see that after we did this, we actually got an error. So usually you should know that if you get 500, message 500 internal server error, this basically means that you did something wrong and there is something wrong in your code. So let's go back to the code. I already stopped the server, and let's see what's wrong. So since our word was not exact, we're obviously assessing the match like function, and let's see what the error could be. So okay, I can see that here in the word plus %, here we missed a comma, and obviously here we need a comma in order to assess afterwards the fetch all function, like we did here with the word. Okay, so let's save that once again. Let's run the server or Flask run, and then let's try doing the same thing. So I will do /word data, and let's do data r. Okay, so you can see that now, guys, once you do that, you actually see quite an informative response, and you can see the different expressions of this word. So the area, which is related to the word, is part of a Roman chancery, and I'm not gonna go into detail, but you can basically see all the different explanations related to the data r word. You can see since that r is part of the mandatory keyword, you can see the description of that word is one who undertakes discharge of specific business or commission. Okay, so you can play with different words and see that there you will find the expressions for quite a lot of them. So this is how, guys, you're creating a dictionary completely with an API, and you're asking for an expression of a word with your API and using this link here. So I hope this was useful for you. Thanks for watching that video, and bear with me in the next one, where we're going to talk about how we can do the same function but for more than one keyword. Thanks for watching. Word list handling and API testing. Hi everyone, today it is actually the final stage of the base aim that we had for our project, and instead of a single word, our application will actually look now for a list of words in a query string. So those words will be added into a list, and for each word of this list we're going to provide some description. We're going to be using the split method in order to split the input of the list to different strings, and also instead of the get function, this time we're going to use the get list function, which will actually provide us with the ability to get more than one words at the same time. So for each word, what we're going to be doing is to first search for the exact match, and if exact match has not been found, then we're going to search for an approximate match, and if an approximate match is also not found, we're going to move to the next word. So let's see how this is done in our IDE. Now last time we stopped here, and let's go to the app.py, and obviously to enable this working for multiple type of words, we obviously need to add some conditional statements and loops. So let's delete what we've done so far, and we're going to actually start from the beginning here. So instead of word, we're going to have words, and these words will be equal to request.args.getList, and inside we're going to add words. Okay, so now we care about multiple or big number of words. And then we will say if not words, so if there are no any words, then we're going to keep the same response. I will just add here after the comma I will add word and then words. Okay, so we can see what words we're searching for, and then the data will be word not found. Okay, and actually let me actually improve this a little bit more, because I don't like how it looks like this. Let's, instead of return this statement immediately, let's actually create a variable which is going to be the same thing. So I will do response will be equal to this string here, and after that I'm going to return and then JSONify, and in the brackets I write response. Okay, that looks way better. Now the next thing what we will need to do is, outside the if statement we need to initialize the list of words. So I will do response equals, and then here we want the list of words. Okay, and this will be empty. So this is how we initialize our response, and then in the next loops we're going to perform certain actions in order to assess each and every word of this list. Okay, so here I will do for word in words, and I want for each word in words to perform everything that is below. Before we had each just for the word that we add, but now we do each word in the words list. Okay, but the rest will be actually absolutely the same. So I'll just hit tab so they can go to the other indentation level, and then here again, instead of return, I will actually make our response be equal to what we had there. So what I will do is response equals status, or actually let's do it with the append method. So I will do response words, actually words in parentheses dot append, and then in the append statement we're going to add that. Okay, and if this doesn't succeed, so I'll write here else, and this means that we didn't find the exact match. We'll try to do match like. Okay, so here I write in this else statement definitions equals to match like, and then we use the word or each word in the list, and then within the else statement if we use the match like, and then if we have definitions, then what we will do is actually here I will again change it to response. So here will be response words dot append, and then let's add some brackets here. Okay, and then let's do else, and this else will actually be related to the second if statement. So here if we don't have definitions or we don't have any words, actually let me put here a bracket, so we remove this error here, and okay, then else, and here if we have something else, then we would like our response to be an error. So what I will do here is simply do response words, and actually here there are parentheses. Okay, so response words dot, and again append, and we use the append method obviously just because we're having a list but not a single word, and we would like to append one behind the other. And once we do that, we have now word is not found, that corresponds to data, and also of course I want here words. Actually this is also in parentheses, words. Okay, so we can actually also display them, you know. And now after we're done with all of those stages, obviously we would like to return the final response. So we need to go out of each of those if and else statements, even out of the for loop, and here I will do return JSONify, and here I write response. Okay, so this is just out of the for loop, which is good. Now let's save that, and this should work for actually absolutely every word. So let's run the code. So Flask run, and let's go to the browser where we already stopped. So we can see that once we wrote that, there is actually an error, and let's go back to the code and see what the error is. So guys, sometimes when you are actually writing code in Python, or this actually happens in Java as well, you're automatically installing some libraries that you don't actually need. So I notice that this library has been installed here, and I will simply remove it. I will also remove the JSON library because we don't need it, and let's save that. Also here, the parameter we're looking for is actually word, but not words. This will actually not change the things that much. Let's save it and let's run it again. So let's do Flask run. And if you go to the browser and run the same thing, you can see that now the things look completely different. Now our status is partial, and we got all the words for data and data are, and we got the status partial, which means that our application works. And this is how you can actually get description for different type of words. So for example, if I here write hello, you are going to get the results for the keyword hello, okay, and also for the different data descriptions. So this is how, guys, you create dictionary using API. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in our next video using the Jupyter Notebook. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the course. Today I wanted to run the project that we already created using simply the Jupyter Notebook that I introduced to you in the beginning of that course. And it is really worth it to do that because the Jupyter Notebook is a very handy tool loved by almost any Python developer. So knowing how to run your commands with it would really improve your skills quite a lot. So to do that, I will go to our project folder by cd API course, and let's go to our project, so cd project 3. So here is the right place to actually create the Jupyter Notebook. And you can do that by simply typing Jupyter Notebook, and now the application will start. So if you have a browser already opened, it will actually appear in your browser, and you can see that this is the folder we're currently in. And what I'm gonna do is simply create a new file on Python 3, and here is your Jupyter Notebook. So now it can work with all the files in your folder. And so in order to do that, first of all, we need to import some libraries here. So let's do import requests. Okay, so after you do that, let's create a local variable called URL, and this will be equal to the actual server that we need, http 127.0.0.1.500. okay, so this is our URL that we're going to be running. And actually, before continuing with the rest of the code, let's go back to our project because obviously we need to run first our project before running the Jupyter Notebook. So here I am in the main file here, and I will just run the code again. So the first thing you need to do obviously is to go into the environment. So I will do source environment /bin/activate. So we activate our environment, and then I will do Flask run, and you can see that now our server is running. So let's close that and let's continue with the Jupyter Notebook. So here I'll create response to be equal to requests dot get and then URL. Okay, and after that, actually let me get closer here. So after that, the only thing that you need to do is to do response dot raise for underscore status, and you can see that our status is 200, which means that our request has been accepted. And then let's do response dot content. Okay, so you can see that obviously here the content is actually our explanation page here, and this is the way that you can find it from your Jupyter Notebook. However, if I write here, for example, dict, okay, so we assess other page, and then I execute each and every line, you can see that obviously we're going to find the words page here, as you can see. And this is how basically you can get the response from the Jupyter Notebook. It is quite simple, as you can see. Now, the next and the final task that we have for that project is to basically create a common user interface, so the users don't see just these letters, but actually it sees some interface in internet once he or she wants to access this amazing API. So this is what we're going to do. Actually, we're going to use the same Google page in order to access our dictionary. And let's go back to our application window, and I'm gonna close the connection for now. So actually, if you have a look at the project, and I will go in its folder right now. So if you look right now at project 3, you will see that inside we have a folder that is called static, and inside it we have again the Google logo and the CSS file. And these files are typically, as I said, used in order to create a user interface for the user to access your application easily in internet. And you can see that here we have the HTML files as well. So what we will do right now is to try access this HTML and CSS files and create complete dictionary for the users to use. So instead of this sentence here, I'll actually remove it right now, and instead of that I'll write return reader template, and for the reader template I'll actually use the index.html file, and let me just place in parentheses. So now we are using the HTML file that is already in this folder. Okay, so this is how we use the index. And after that, let's go down here, and actually here I noticed that I did a mistake, because here should be word instead of words. So let's save that. And also here in the return, obviously now we don't want anymore our return to be in a JSON type. So now what I'm gonna do is I will use again the reader template. So here I write a bracket, and I write results.html, then comma, and here we write response will be equal, let me just remove that block. So response will be equal to JSON file, and here I write response. Okay, so this is our new modified return statement, and so far everything else looks exactly the same. So after you do that, guys, actually our project is completely done and ready, and you see how few lines of code actually you needed in order to perform that project and to make it very beautiful and graphically pleasant for the users. So let me actually prove you that. Let's type Flask run, and now our project is running here, and the only thing you need to do now is to simply select this link here, and I'll copy it, and you actually don't need to add anything after that. This will be like a typical user interface, so you just need to go to the website, and after that you can type the words on your own without any complex syntax. So let's go back here, and I open another tab, and let's paste it. And you can see that once I paste it, you see obviously here the Google page, and let's type here, okay, let's type the word happy. I was searching for it already, and you can see that when I type it, you see the complete dictionary actually showing you what the happy word means, and even gives you some options to choose. Okay, and you can see that we're going now to the link dict word equals happy. Okay, this is how it works. And also we have here the I'm feeling lucky button. So if I press it, you will see that we actually see plenty of words in the dictionary, and actually this is the representation of the whole dictionary. So this is what this button does. Okay, so this is the project, guys. Keep it if you wish for your friends, to show them what achievement you've already done with the Python, Flask and the API projects. So that was actually everything for today. I hope you really enjoyed that section and all the videos in that course, but don't worry, there is plenty more to cover here, and we're going to develop even more amazing projects. So stay with me and we're going to continue in the next section. Filter other API. Hello everyone. Welcome back to the course and welcome to this section where we're going to develop an amazing picture editing software. So before that, let me share with you the background of the project and what this filter is actually going to represent. So far, we learned how to create an API and how to create a GET request, but we never talked about how to create a POST request with an API. So for that reason, we are going to build an image, and the API is going to accept our image by POST request, so we're going to send it. And so once the API assesses the picture, by using the POST command, the API is actually going to apply filters to it, and we're going to use that our software, our code that we're actually going to write, and then we'll send it back to the requester or back to us. And you will see how this is done. It is actually quite simple. So we're going to see the picture both with and without filter. Well, not like the one that is displayed in front of you, but actual filter that is going to change the appearance of that image completely. So you'll be able to compare completely how the picture looks before and after it passes through our software. So this is quite exciting, and I'm really looking forward to explaining this type of project. Now to do that, let's open the terminal, which I actually already have in front of me, because we need to create another project, completely new one. So let's first access our Git repository by git clone http:/github.com/ and then add your username, because you should also have this repository right now. So my name is mpyanev94/web APIs with Python, and then .git. Okay, so let's access that, and you can see that we're copying the repository right now, which we actually do for every project. This is nothing new for you. You should be already professional by now. Okay, and then actually I'm going to get back to the folder, and I see that I actually copied on the wrong place. I mean, I copied in the previous project, but you can simply move it. And so let's name this project 4. Okay, and you can see that there is nothing inside yet because we still didn't check out the project. So let's do now Python 3 minus, actually let's first access the folder, so I'll do cd and then cd project 4, and then let's write Python 3 minus m vnv then env, so the folder will be called vnv, and here is our Python environment. This is how we install it. So if I write ls, you can see that we already have the Python environment here, and then let's activate it. So I will do source env/bin/activate. Okay, let's run it. Actually, it didn't work out. Let's see what's my mistake. So source, yes, I misspelled the source. So here is how it is. And now we're guys in our environment, as you can see, because we get a keyword env here. Okay, so now let's install all the packages we need. You can do that by writing pipe3 checkout and then the name of the project that we're actually going to be using today. And this is our project 4. So p4-image-filter-flask. Okay. Sorry, actually, I didn't pay attention, but obviously first you need to install the packages. So you need to write pipe3 install -r and then requirements.txt. Obviously first we need to install all the packages. So let's do that. And now you can see they are installing in our computer. And after that, now we can do the checkout. So let's do git checkout and then the name of the project, as I said, p4-image-filter-flask. Okay, let's run that, and you can see that we switch to the branch p4-image-filter-flask. And if I write now ls, you can see that there are a bunch of files here already with actually plenty of data. So you have here your sample JPG image, and if you go here to the folder, you can see that this is the sample image. You can see how it looks like, a cat in a computer basically. So this is the picture that we're actually going to apply the filter on. And then let's actually open our file with the Visual Studio. So just open a window and select open, and here I open project 4. Okay, so we have it here, and let's check out the file. So here you have the app.py, and this is the main file that we're actually going to be working on. Then in the bin directory you have the filters .py, which is also another project or another file actually that we're going to be working on. And then you have the picture. So actually these are the main files that we're going to be using here, guys. Here is your image. And in the next lecture I will show you actually what filters we have available, or what filters we're going to make available to be applied to the image. It's going to be actually more than one, so you have some choice, some options to choose from, but all this we're gonna do in the next section. So that was it actually for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in our next video. Filter route and changes. Hi everyone, in this section we're going to be defining the route for the index page or for the main page, but here the huge difference from what we've done so far is that this time the page will actually accept both GET and the POST requests. So as I promised you, we're actually going to use the sending capability, so we're going to be sending something to the API, and then we're going to receive what we already sent it but processed with the filters. So in this section we're going to, or actually in this video, we're going to be talking about what filters are available, and I will give you some instructions on how you can actually use them. And the final thing before actually start with the code is that we're going to use something called Python imaging library, which is already predefined, and we're going to use its handy functions in order to modify our picture. So let's not lose any more time and let's actually get started. So before actually starting with the code, let me show you something, that this is actually the documentation for the filters that we're going to be using. If you're of course interested, you can go on pillow.readdocs.io/en/stable, and here you can basically find information about all the filters that are available for image processing. And if I press here the image filter modules, you can see that we have blur, counter, detail, and so on. We're actually going to create a variable containing all of those features for processing our image. So if you want to see the other options, because obviously we cannot use all of them here in that course, if you're really interested in image processing, you can use the frame of the code that we're going to create and actually look at the other options available here. So the first thing actually that I will do here is to add the filters. And you can do that by adding them in here in filters available. So what I will do is actually I will start typing between those brackets, and here I will write first blur. This will be our first filter. Then let's type contour. Next one will be detail, and then H, enhance. Okay, after that let's add their other filter, which is H, enhance, more. So this is the more enhanced filter, so you can create actually more sharp image with this one. Then let's write emboss, find edges, that's it, sharpen, then smooth, and finally smooth underscore more. Okay, this is the more smooth filter. Okay, so those are going to be our filters. I mean, yet these are just the names, but they are contained here in that list. So later on we're obviously going to be using that list in order to complete our code. So the next thing I will do is to create the main method. So here actually it is very important that you know that we're going to add two HTTP methods, one for get and one for the post request. So this is actually one of the key methods that we're going to be doing today. And all this is going to be collected into the response of this method. So let's remove the pass keyword here and let's write response will be equal to first filters underscore available, and then filters available. Okay, so this is our as you can see, our list here. Okay, and then we are going to write usage, and inside the brackets I write http underscore method. Okay, so the http method will be obviously post. Okay, this is the method that we will be using, comma URL, and this again will be in parentheses, and after that the URL will be obviously here filters available, so I write like that, filters underscore available. Okay, and then here let's write a comma. Okay, and pretty much that's it. So after you create the response, obviously you need to return it from that method, so I will simply do return response, and we're completely done here, guys. The only thing I will add is that I would like to return the response in JSON format, so let's do JSON-fi response, and this is how in the response we're basically containing the filters available and also the usage of the function. Okay, so if the user accesses the page without adding any parameters, this is what he's going to get. Now, once we have that, we can continue to the next function, which is the actual filters function, and this is the place where we're going to call the filters. So let me remove the pass keyword here, and let's add the filters. And obviously we'll need some more complex logic here, so let's write an if statement. So if filter not in filters available, so here we're doing an error check, then the response will be equal to, let's write error. Okay, so be careful because the error handling in Python and actually in every code is quite important, and this is why I want you to get more comfortable with always trying to predict what errors could appear. So let's write incorrect filter. Okay, so this is if the user typed the wrong name of the filter, and then I'll return JSON-fi, and here let's write response. That's it. Okay, so if we pass this if statement successfully, then we can type file equals request dot files, and here I write image. Okay, and then let's also create another error handling here. So if not file, okay, so if we don't find actually a file, if we don't find an image file in the folder, then we would like to say that there is no file in the folder, right? So let's do response, and the response that we're going to be sending in that case will also be some sort of error. So let's write error, and the error would be something like that there is no file. So let's write no file available. Okay, and then let's return this response. So let's return and then a response. That's it. So we already handled what would happen if we write the wrong filter and if we don't find the file, which is quite useful. And finally we can actually concentrate on actually getting the image. So let's write filtered image will be equal on apply filter dot actually here let's write the brackets as this is a function. So apply filter, and to this function we will pass the file that we have, and also we will pass the filter. Okay, so by passing the file we apply actually the filter, the name of the filter. Obviously the name of the filter calls in the background all the methods from the filters library and apply to the file. Okay, and this file, the returned file, will actually be stored in the filtered image. Quite simple. And now we would like to return it, so let's write a return send file. Okay, and then I write filtered image, comma, meme type, and here the meme type will be in format image slash, and let's do it JPEG. Okay, you know, if you work enough with images, you know that this is a type of image. So this is everything. Let's save it, and I just want you actually to go to the filters.py that you can see here in the bin directory and remove the pass keyword because we no longer need it here. Let's save that. And in the next video, we're actually going to write the code for the whole filter. So let's save our project here, guys. And we're gonna stop here today, and tomorrow I'm gonna show you what you're gonna write in the filters.py, and we're actually going to test the code with the Jupyter Notebook. That's it. Thank you very much for watching that video today, guys, and I cannot really wait to see you in the next one. Test the Filters API. Hi guys, and welcome back to the course. As I promised in the last video, today we're actually going to create the apply filters file here in filters.py. And this is quite important file, of course, because this is basically going to get our image from the directory and going to apply the filter to it. So let's get started. Let's type image, and image will be equal to the image class, so image dot open, and here we would like to open the file that we pass. As you can see here, we passed a file which is going to be an object, and then we pass a filter which is a string. Okay, so we still didn't use the filter yet, but now we access the file, and then let's write image will be equal to image dot filter eval, and then let's write f, and here I write image filter dot, and now here we're going to pass actually the keyword in the filter that we chose. So you can do that by simply writing filter dot upper, so it is with uppercase, and this is just because these functions, the image filter function actually understands only strings passed in capital letters. So this is what we're going to do here. Okay, so let's close that right now, and this is how it's done. So we're gonna pass that image filter dot the name of the filter with uppercase to the filter. Okay, that's gonna be applied to the image, of course. So this is actually the way that we're applying the filter to the image. Okay, and after we're ready, let's write here file, okay, equals to input output dot bytes.io, and here we're going to define how the image will actually be saved. So let's do image dot save, and then file comma jpeg, and that's it. We're ready here, and then let's write file dot seek, and let's put 0 here. Okay, and finally write return file. Okay, and this is our function, guys. Okay, so our function basically uses the filter function from the image filter, and since it does that, we can actually use only this function. So we're using apply filter, and we just pass file and filter. So we pass the file or the image that we have, and the filter, which is one of the names here that we chose. Okay, let's save those. So once we're ready with the filter and with the app.py, let's save our changes and let's run that in a server. So let me actually, I'm running another application. Let's actually close it, and here I will do Flask run. Okay, and you can see that now we're running our application. So at the same time, let's open a terminal, and as you can see here, I'm in our API course, and let me enter project 4. So project 4. Okay, and let's run the Jupyter Notebook. So to do that, you simply need to run Jupyter Notebook, and now it will run in the browser, and you can see, guys, that this is now our folder. So let's create a new Python 3, and remember that our API is already running in the background. You can see from here that it's running on that address, so it should run in order for us to manipulate it. Okay, so what I will do here is I will do import requests, and then I will do response is equal to requests dot post, and here I will write actually the address of our program. So I write http and then 127.0.0.1 5000. Okay, let's run that, and then let's write response dot race for status, and we're doing that so I can see that the response is 200, which means that our request is successful. So now, the first thing that we need to do is obviously decide what filter to choose. But in order for us to not need to go back to the code and actually watch the actual script in order to decide what filter to use, we can actually use another approach. Let's import, let me get closer. So let's import JSON, okay? And then you can write a JSON dot loads. Okay, so we are going to actually load something in JSON format, and then inside I write response dot content dot decode, and we're going to use the protocol UTF-8. So I write UTF-8 here. Okay, and this is how we decode it. So here's how, by decoding the response, we can actually see all of our filters, so filters available, and also the usage of the function. And this actually, if you remember, what we wrote in our main index page. Okay, so now we're in this function here. Okay, and this is how we're saying filters available, and then we're displaying all the filters from here, and after that we're saying what is the usage of our function. Okay, so let's go back to the Jupyter Notebook and let's jump to the next functions. Okay, here we need to use a little bit more code in order to do that, but it is also very easy. So let's write file equals image and then open, and here I write. So here we need to write the name of the image. So even if you want to use another image in your file, you can definitely do it. But since the image currently in the folder is called sample.jpg, this is the name I'm going to write. So I write sample.jpg, okay, comma, rb, okay, this is the function we use to open the file. And then let's do headers equals to type, and then let's write multipart slash image. Okay, and finally I'm gonna assign our address to a local variable, so I write URL equals to http slash 127.0.0.1 and then 5000. Okay, and now since we created those variables, we just need to use it. I'll actually just create one more variable so it is more simple to us, and this will be filter equals, and then let's choose one of the filters here. So let's choose, I will for example choose the smooth more filter, so because I want to see how it looks like, but feel free to choose any filter from our list. So let's do smooth underscore more. Okay, and after that let's create our response. So I will do response equals requests dot post, then brackets, and I will explain you what this means, guys, in a second. So you need to write f and then here URL, so the URL that we used. Okay, then slash filter. Okay, so basically here what we have is the URL slash the name of the filter, which is the smooth more. And then let's write headers equal to headers, comma, files equals to file. Okay, just this is what we have in the post function. So what we are doing right now, we're actually posting the image by completing our post request. So let's do that. Okay, we're ready. And after that, guys, let's actually check what is the status of our post request. So let's do response dot raise for status. Actually here I did a typo, so here will be for status. Okay, and you can see that we actually got the better response. We got response 500, which we shouldn't usually get. So this means that we did mistake somewhere on the line. And so this means that we definitely did some error in the code, but it is good to run this in order to know that you did an error or not before jumping into actually processing the image. So let's go back to the code and see what error we found. So here you can see name error, name, image filler not defined. And obviously here I just messed up the name of the image. It shouldn't be image filler, but image filter. Okay, so you can see how one letter can actually cause a lot of problems. Let's save that right now and let's actually run Flask run again. And I'll go back to our code, and what you need to do is just to rerun every command from the beginning. So press on every command, shift and then enter. Okay, and go one by another, and once you reach the response status, hit enter here, and you can see that now your response is response 200. And if you go back here, you can see that on this line your code is completely accepted. Okay, so now we posted the image, which is completely done, but we haven't stored it or view it yet. So let's do that as well. So let's write from pil import image. Okay, and then I'll write import io. Okay, and now let's write image will be equal to image dot open, then io dot bytes io. Okay, and then write response dot content. Okay, and you can see that here we don't have any errors. So finally we would like to obviously save the image, so let's do image dot save. And I must mention that we already actually have the image. So since this line here we already have the image, but what we're doing right now is simply we assess the image that is somewhere over there and we actually place it in our folder. So I will do image save, and the name of the image will be response.jpg, and then comma, and here I write JPEG as a format. Okay, that's done. And let's write now image, so we display the image. Okay, and you can see that now we have the same image, but it's actually way smoother. And if you compare it with the original image, you can see that the original is way more sharper comparing to this one. But actually, since obviously this is not very convincing, let's add some filter that will completely change the colors. So I'll go back to our folder and I will show you the two images. And now let's actually go back to here and change the filter. So I will change the filter to contour, which is the first one, and run all the commands again. You can do that on your own just for fun. So let's run everything. And the only thing here is I will change the saved image to a different name. So I will do contour.jpg. Okay, and when you display the image, you can see that now the difference is quite significant, because now we only get the contour of the image and the colors are completely removed. So as a task, I want to give you to try playing with the different filters and see how they're actually going to change your image, and use for that the Jupyter Notebook. But this is how you're creating complete filter from scratch for the complete zero using the Python and the post and the get API, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this section. Thanks for watching, and bear with me in the next few sections, because in there we're going to start working with the FastAPI, and we're going to be talking about something called Asynchronous API, which can do multiple tasks at the same time, but not like Flask, simply one. So bear with me in the next sections, but that was it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. The FastAPI. Hi everyone. As we all saw, Flask is absolutely brilliant for building different types of APIs. It is very easy to learn, as you saw, and you can use it quite easily in order to manipulate APIs. However, Flask on the other side has some limitations. Even Netflix is using Flask to multiple applications internally that they have, and they use it quite successful. But why Flask might not be the best thing currently available, and let's talk about in what scenarios Flask might not be the best and how we can solve that. Well, to understand that, first we need to talk about what asynchronous programming is. Now, the big problem of Flask is that Flask struggles to perform multiple requests together. And this is like if you imagine you're going with your friends to a bar and there is only one bartender, but you all have orders to that bartender. Well, obviously, there is a high chance that you are going to wait quite a lot until your friends are served, and then you might be able to receive your drinks, right? So this will definitely increase the time. Or let's say if you're a chef, or if you go to a restaurant with only one chef, then if the chef is actually making all the dishes for all people in the restaurant, then he can complete dish 1, then he can jump to dish 3, then he can jump to dish 4, and so on. Well, at the same time, if you have many chefs, all the dishes will be started at the same point of time, and then all of them, the whole task will be completed faster. So this is the difference between synchronous and asynchronous cooking, and the same difference is between the asynchronous and synchronous programming. And sadly, Flask is not able to do asynchronous programming, which means that every task has to be completed before you continue to the next one. And obviously, if you want to create an API application that applies multiple requests and responses at the same time, Flask might not be the right tool for you. And for that reason, in the past 3 years, there was actually another tool that was developed in 2018 called the FastAPI. And obviously, the main reason why people are choosing the FastAPI to Flask is, first of all, that in fact it is able to do asynchronous programming. And the second thing is that compared to the other asynchronous programming tools, actually the FastAPI has the unique ability to be quite fast, and you can even see that from the name. So even though Flask is perfect, the only thing that Flask is slow at is asynchronous programming. And here's the open market for the FastAPI, and this is why today in the industry this is actually the most used tool for asynchronous tasks. So there is actually nothing left except going to our IDE and run our first FastAPI project. Now here are our projects, and let's pull up a terminal and let's write here git clone, then access the starter kit from your GitHub account and web APIs with Python. So clone that once again, and you will see that the folder appears here. So once it's downloaded, I'm actually going to rename it to project 4, and this will be the project where we actually do our hello world with the FastAPI, and I will show you how it works. So let's write here project 5, and now from the terminal let's write Python -m. Actually, let's first enter the folder, so cd project 5, then Python -m venv and then env. Okay, so you can see that now here we have the Python environment, and after we do that, let's actually activate it with source env/bin/activate. And now we're in Python environment, so now we can actually add the requirements. So let's do requirements, actually let's do pipe3 install requirements.txt, and actually let's add -r so it can read the file. Okay, and now you can see that everything looks fine. So after the requirements get installed, I'm actually going to install the actual project for the FastAPI, and let's now do git checkout p5/hello-FastAPI. Okay, so now we're in the branch, and you can see that in the folder we actually got the main file here. Okay, and as you can see, there is nothing inside yet. So let's open and let's go to API course project 5. Okay, so let's open this directory, and in the main file here, so here we need to do something obviously. So as you can see from the FastAPI, we import the FastAPI class. Here is how we name the API class, and then this is actually something very familiar with you. to you, and this is the index page of our website once we create a front page. So the only thing that you need to do here is actually write hello. Actually, let me make it in dollar parentheses. So hello and then fast API. Okay. And so let me show you how we actually run this API, the fast API. It's slightly different from the Flask. So I'll select this here. And as you can see, we're already in the environment project 5. So what you need to write is simply UVI corn main app reload. So obviously here, the way we're running the fast API looks a bit more complex than Flask run. And yes, this is some imperfections of the fast API, but believe me, the benefits are actually way more. So let's run that. And you can see that the fast API starts running, and this is your address that you can actually access it. So if I copy it and I go to the browser and I just paste it and hit return, you see hello and fast API, which means that the fast API is actually working and actually emits requests and gets responses, which is quite nice. Now, obviously, I want to show you two ways to run it, so you have your own informed choice. And let's go now to the terminal. And if you want to run it from the terminal, you simply need to write curl -x, then the get request, and then http://127.0.0.1 okay, this is the address. And you can see that once you do curl and address, you actually get hello fast API, which means that fast API is working for you and you can proceed with the next sections. So this was everything for today, guys. I hope this introduction for you was very efficient and make you to really quickly introduce yourself to fast API. And in the next lecture, we're actually going to start building a dictionary with fast API and use the asynchronous programming for that. Thanks for watching. Building dictionary with fast API. Hello everyone, hi and welcome back to the course. And today we're actually going to use the fast API for some actual tasks. And now we're going to actually rebuild and implement or increment our skills with building the dictionary, but this time we'll make the process completely asynchronous and use the fast API for that reason. And we're going to use a project that contains the fast API starter kit, and you can even see here from the directory that this is already quite different comparing to Flask. In Flask we had app.py files, while here we're using a main file. There are also obviously some more differences, like the way we're actually running the fast API and also the commands that we're going to type, because this is completely different structure. But about this we're going to speak a bit later when we actually go into typing or writing the actual code. So let's go back to our projects, and you can see that last time we were doing the Hello World project. So I'm gonna close it and actually install and start the project 6, which will be the dictionary project with fast API. So let's go out of project 5 and let's write the git clone command from before, so this gets installed. And at the same time, I'm actually going to open the folder so you can see it in action. And once we install our main directory, I will name it project 6. So let's name it project 6 and let's access it. So cd project 6, and here we're going to install all the necessary kits. So I will do Python 3 -m venv or env actually to install the Python environment. And once this is ready, we're going to run it by source env/bin/activate. And actually, if you wonder how we activate our virtual environment with this command, well, this is very simple, because when you go to environment and bin, you can actually see the activation file, which is this one. Okay, so this is a file that basically activates your Python environment and makes you able to run Python commands in your terminal. But anyways, this is just so you're aware of that. After we're in our environment, let's install. So pipe3 install -r requirements.txt. Okay, and once you do that, now it's time to actually install the actual project. So the actual project is called git checkout p6 dictionary FastAPI. Okay, so after some typos, actually it ran for me by writing git checkout p6 dictionary FastAPI. And now if you can see, guys, in the folder, you can actually see that there are a bit more files, right? So you have the data file, which is a database with all the dictionary. Then you have the main file, which is not completed yet. Then you have our model, which will include the functions for accessing the database. And let's now go to the Visual Studio and let's open the project. So API project 6. Okay, let's trust. And first I want you to open the main file. So here we have the index method and the dictionary method, which we're going to implement. Also here you can see that we added now the FastAPI instead of Flask. And also if you go and check our model, there is actually not a big change in there, and we're basically going to implement the same match exact and match like methods, because they're actually not going to be different since we're just using them from our main file. Now the first things that we'll actually do is to add a little bit more dictionaries or functions here. So I will do from FastAPI dot encoders import JSONable encoder. So this is what we do here in order to make the files JSON. And the first thing we will do, guys, is actually add our usage instructions when we access the index page. So this is done by response. So response will be equal to usage. Actually, let's make it in parentheses. So usage, and then dict question mark equals word. Okay, and this is how we're gonna explain how our dictionary works. And then what we want to do is return JSONable encoder, which is the encoder we're using, is instead of JSON file that we're using on Flask. So let's here do response. Okay, and this is how the user knows that you're actually using the response here in order to provide some data to the user. And the next function, guys, we're going to update is the dictionary function. So here first in the brackets, let's write word column str for string. Okay, and after that, let's read what this function actually has to do. So first of all, it has to accept the word request. Then we're gonna find exact match and return if we found it. And finally, if we don't find it, we're going to look for an approximate match. Pretty much the same thing like we're using Flask, but just this time we're going to do it in an asynchronous way. So let me remove this return statement here so we don't return anymore the word to do. And I will do if not word. So obviously, as you can see, the first thing we're trying is to actually avoid errors. So if there is no word, we would like to return an error. And I will do response will be equal to curly bracket and then status. And the status will be error, comma, word. And then the word will be word. So it will display the word that we were trying to add. And then it will show data, and the information for the data, since there is no data for that word, will be word not found. You can choose any other sentence that you would understand, but this is the one that I think it's the most descriptive. So let's do here return, and here we're going to return in a actually JSONable encoder. So we're gonna get the JSON file response. Okay, so we're gonna return this response in the right format. And after that, let's write definitions will be equal to match exact, and here I write word. Okay, so as you can see, first we are looking for a word, and then let's write if definitions. So this means that if definitions equals to true, then we'll do response equals, and since this is true, or if we found the exact match for the word, would like to return a status. So status will be success, then let's write comma, and then word is word. Okay, and then data will be definitions. Okay, and once done with that, let's write return, and we're gonna return in a JSON encoder format. We're going to return the response from the server. Okay, so we're gonna display that. And if that's not the case, so let's write else statement here. So everything else means that the definitions didn't find an exact match, and if that's the case, let's do response equals, and here for status, so status, and here will be actually instead of that, delete that, because I also want to encounter an error here, right? So I was thinking to add status success if we have exact match, and with the else statement to go through the match like. But instead of that, let's do it the following way. So here, if this if statement doesn't get executed, or we don't have an exact match, then we'll go through another if statement. So let's do if definitions. Okay, and obviously here before the if, we need to run the or change actually the value of the definitions, and since the match exact didn't work, we would like here to use the match like filter. Okay, and here we're gonna pass the word. Okay, so this means that if we don't find exact match, then we're gonna go to the match like, and we're gonna use the word, and then we're going to display the word. So we're going to do response, and then the status. So let's do status, and here the status will be not success but partial. Okay, because we found the word not with exact match, so I'll do partial. Okay, comma, and then word, then dots, and here I write word. Okay, comma, and then data, and here I write definitions. That's it. Okay, and after that, let's write return JSON encoder, and here I write response. Okay, and basically the return statement is pretty much the same, and here now you can write actually else. So else, and in any other case we would like to return an error, so let's do response equals, and here I will again write status, and here the status will be error. Okay, and let's write a comma, and then I'll write word, and then we would like to display the word that we wrote, and the data, or what we're going to show to the user, will be again word not found. Okay, and after that, let's return again the response with the JSON type. So here I write response. Okay, a very simple combination of if-else statements in order to execute our commands. So let's save that, and once we're ready, let's save it, and let's go to our model file and go to the DB handler. Okay, or the database handler, and here we're gonna write how our functions are going to be working. So this is actually quite similar to our previous project, and I will do DB equals to SQL, okay, or our database base, and then let's write connect, and here you can write data slash dictionary dot DB. Okay, DB for database, and this is actually the file that we already have here. If you select data, you can see the dictionary DB, And once we access this file, let's do SQL underscore query equals to select multiply sign from entries where word equals question mark. Okay, and then let's do match will be equal to db dot execute, so we execute the database, and then here I will use the SQL query that we did, comma, and then in the brackets let's write word, comma, dot fetch cho, okay, and let's do the brackets here, and then db dot close, so we close the database, and we are almost done. I just need to do the return statement, and we're gonna return the match. Okay, so everything that is matching is going to be returned. Then for the next function, let's again remove the return statement here, and here again we'll do db equals sql dot connect, and here since we use the same database, I will do data slash dictionary dot db. Okay, and after we're ready with that, let's do again the SQL query, which is going to be slightly different. So SQL query equals to select multiply sign from entries where word like. Okay, and since here we use like, this will actually give us the query where we're just matching words that are similar to the one that we chose. Then let's do match equals to db dot execute, and then SQL underscore query, comma, and here I will write percent sign in parentheses plus word plus percent sign, then again comma, just outside the parentheses, dot fetch all. Okay, and then you do similar things, guys. So now you just need to close the database, so I will do db dot close, and let me just add the parentheses, and then return match. Okay, let's save that, and now we're ready with our functions with both of them. So let's run our code. And you can see that here we're already in the environment and we're in project 6. So let's run the program by writing uvi corn main app -- reload. Okay, so you can see that now our server starts running here, and I can see that we're actually getting a problem on line 6 on our main file. So let's see what the issue is. Yeah, so the issue here is that I actually copied the code from Flask, and this is why here is written Flask name. So instead I will do FastAPI, since this is the package we're using, and let me save that. And this actually should be it. So let's close it and let's open it once again. And as I see, there are no additional errors so far. So the only thing we can do is actually to open the terminal. So I will write terminal. Okay, and let's do cd API course, and then cd project 6. Okay, so now we're in project 6. Actually, doesn't matter where we are, but let's now run some command, and the command will be curl. Actually, let me increase the size of the window. So curl -x get, and then let's write the address, which is this one here, and I will just copy it. So let's copy and paste it here, and after the address I will write dict, okay, which is our function, as you can see here. So we have dict question mark, and let's do now the query. So this will be word, and this is the parameter that we are passing here. So you see word, and the word should be a string. So I will do equal to, let's try happy. Okay, let's run that and see what happens. And we can see that there is another error. So let's actually troubleshoot that as well. It's good that we're receiving errors so we can see how actually errors are fixed in Python. So let's see here actually. And guys, here in the handler functions, I can see that we didn't add the brackets in front of the fetch all function here, and this is why our request was not recognized. And actually there is one very cool feature about FastAPI, and this is that when you save your files, you actually don't need to stop your IP address. So now when I did the change, and if I press Command S, okay, and you can see that immediately there is a change in the code and it shuts down and it gets online automatically, right? So you don't need to turn it off, which is quite cool. And this means that you can constantly update your script and add modifications in your live application. So let's go back to the terminal and let's write the same thing, curl -x get, and we're gonna get the word happy. So let's run it. And you can see that we got the information. So the status is partial, so we activated the match like function. And here you can see all the descriptions for the word happy, okay? And you can check them if you're interested, and you can see also some other words as well. So I wanted to play a little bit and I tried obviously for some other words as well. I advise you to do this too. Thanks for watching, and bear with me in the next video, which is going to be the last for this section, where I will show you how you can deal with the FastAPI documentation specifically used in your code. Thanks for watching. Open API documents. Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk to you how you can deal with the API documentation, and in the FastAPI this is actually done in quite simple way, and for that reason I just wanted to explain it to you. Obviously nobody wants to build documentation for his code by his own because it is so much time consuming, and in some cases you can actually use the same time for writing the documentation as for writing your whole script. And the truth is, the more documentation is available, actually the developers can learn better how certain script or tool is working. And since the serious documentation actually solves a lot of problems, the FastAPI has quite useful documentation engine which can actually generate documentation automatically by prompting you to a user interface specifically dedicated for the developers. So how you do that? Let's go out to our Python application, and while your application is running, let's go to the browser. So let's paste the IP address we have, and instead of the pages that we already defined, let's do /docs, okay? And you can see that here, once you access /docs, there is the graphical user interface for your documentation. You can obviously see that there are two paths, the index and the dict path, and these are exactly the functions that you created earlier in your code. So this means that you're going to see only the documentation for your code. So the index here is your main page, which uses the get method, and then you get the dictionary, which uses the method that responds to our get method. And so let's open those tabs and see what happens. So if I open here, you can see that here we say that the default method will actually return us a JSON file, which is completely true, because the final method we used was to convert our string in JSON, right? So this is the only media we can choose here, but this is very nice because in a graphic way you can actually see what your function is doing and some information about it. And here you can see that obviously you return a string and so on. Now moving to the dictionary file, you can see that here there is a description which we actually wrote, and you can say accept word from request, try to find exact match. If not found, we do an approximate match. And this is all the to-do tasks that we did earlier on. And then you can see that graphically there are some parameters required, which is the word here, right? Because we need to provide word in order to use a dictionary, otherwise we would run into an error. And then we can see the different things that can appear. So if we get code 200, we're getting successful response. Or we can get response 422 where we get validation error, and this is the error cases where there is no word specified, or just the word that we specify actually doesn't have even an approximate match. So you can see how each and every stage of your function is described here, which is, trust me, very useful, especially when you work with huge applications. So there is also one very nice option here, try it out, and you can actually try out graphically your application. So if I write here happy, okay, and I select execute, our function is immediately executed, and you can see the command with which this is executed. You can see the result that you will see in the URL, okay, so you can do it either from the terminal or from the URL, and then you can see the response 200 and what you're getting in very structured way, right? So you can do chappy, full, happy, happy, and so on. You get all the words that are similar to yours, and you can even download it. This is absolutely amazing, and it really makes you understand in a graphical way how your function works by trying it out. So I really advise you to go to your IP address /docs to see absolutely all the available options that you enable to your code or to a code that you're using. So this was everything for this project, guys. Thank you very much for watching. You can see that with every section we're learning more and more stuff and new things, and we're really going to dig a little bit more in the FastAPI. So the next section will be about it, and I will teach you how to make some amazing filters with the FastAPI in completely asynchronous way. That's it. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will see you in our next adventure. Image filters with FastAPI. Hi guys, and welcome back to the course. Today, without losing any time, I'm going to show you how you can adopt our image filter into the FastAPI, and later on in this section I will show you how to do it asynchronous, and I will show specifically how much time this saves. So we're going to do some time experiments where you will see the huge advantages for using the FastAPI. So let's get started. As you can see, I'm already in the terminal, and I will go into our API course folder because here we're going to need to implement some additional projects. So let's write our git clone command in order to clone the main repository from GitHub and create our next project. And once this is done, let's enter the folder and install the Python environment. So let's do Python 3-m venv and then environment, okay. And if you write ls, you can see that we have now our Python environment, and let's activate it by source env/bin/activate. Okay, so now our Python environment is activated, and now we can do the pipe since this is a Python command. So pipe install, and then we're going to install the file that we have inside, requirements.txt. So we have all the necessary Python packages for our project. We're doing this every time, so you should be already familiar with it. And once we install all the packages, I would like you to take the repository for this specific project from GitHub. So let's write git checkout, and then write s7-filter-fast-API. Okay, so you can see that we're already in the branch, and now we have our project. So let me go in the folders, and I'm gonna name this project 7, okay. And actually this project is completed because our main purpose for this course is to actually test the time, as you already learned how to create that filter, but we want to test the time and how to make it asynchronous. So let's now open the Visual Studio Code, and here I will select open, and then I will open the project. Okay, so if you check the main file, obviously here this is the main function we're using. So we have the main file and we have the filters file. So in the main file here, you can see that there's actually not that much difference from the FastAPI and the Flask here. So first we declare all the libraries, then we state our variable with all the type of filters that we actually did the same with Flask. And then here the difference is that we're stating the two methods, the get and the post method that we're using. As you know, when doing filters, we're actually posting the image, then it gets processed, and then we're getting the processed image that was done. And here in the index, obviously we're saying how our function is working. Then we're actually using the filter in our post method here. So as you can see here, we're doing app.post, and we pass the parameters filter as a string and the uploaded file as an image. This is how you do it with FastAPI. You upload it as a upload image equals file, and then here on the place of the three dots is obviously going to be your file, and then here we're handling the errors just like we did with the Flask. So if the filter is not in our available filters, obviously what we're going to do is we'll write that there is incorrect filter, and we're going to return that in JSON format. And after that, if our filter is actually in the list of filters, then what we can do is to simply return and use the apply filter function with our image and our filter that we assigned from the list here. And finally we're going to return that filter, so we will have the exact image that we need. And here, if you check the filters how they're set up, we're simply using the image filter functionality in Python, and all the code here is the way we're getting the image and how we open it. Then we have the code for actually using the filter, and we're doing this by writing image filter dot in the name of the filter, and we apply it to the image. And finally we're saving the image in the final file, so we're returning the file here, as you can see. So this is, guys, how the filter function looks like when we apply it with the FastAPI. Now, since you already installed that, bear it with me in the next videos, because in there we're going to test the asynchronous multitasking from the FastAPI, and you will see the considerable improvement when using that package comparing to all the rest packages, and specifically comparing it to Flask. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching that video for the API programming, and bear with me in the next one where we're going to start to conduct our tests, making an asynchronous program. Hello everyone. Welcome to this video, and just so you know, since now we're using the FastAPI just like the Flask, we were trying to perform just one task at a time, but this will quickly change, and this video is the start of that. So you see how the asynchronous programming actually considerably improve your application functionality, and you see how a program that was built as being a normal program can actually become asynchronous by applying some simple functionalities. So let's first look at the pseudocode below. So the async keyword is actually there to declare that there is an asynchronous function. By adding the async keyword in Python, you're actually asking Python in this specific case to cook or wash multiple dishes at the same time. And so you're ready to start washing the new dish while the first one is not already clean. This is like having multiple hands, right? So this means if you write dishes equals get dish order will actually not work, because it expects to be awaiting for all dishes to be complete at the same time. And so the right way to do it is to write the keyword await. So this means that the function has to be awaited while it completes all the orders, and if you don't add this keyword, it might throw an error, and you should be aware of that. And so luckily in Flask, actually you even don't need to worry about await keywords and so on, because everything is built inside the script, and adding all those functionalities actually make your script more than 80% faster. So if you have to clean all those dishes, well, I think you shouldn't worry that this will take too much of your precious time. So let's look at our first Flask testing scenario: asynchronous to sequential API cells. Let's go back to our API function here, and let's run it from the terminal. So just write uvi corn main app -- reload, and this will run your API. So now we can start writing all those functions. So we're gonna do that from the Jupyter Notebook, and let's go to the terminal. So let's go to our project 7, and here the first thing I will do, make sure that you're in environment. I will actually add one package which will actually help with the asynchronous programming. So write pipe install, okay, AIO HTTP, okay, So now this package is installed. As you can see, I get the requirement already satisfied because I already have this package. But if you don't have it, you're going to see how it loads in your computer and you will get a message once it is installed. So now let's go to the Jupyter Notebook, and I guess you already know how to do it. So just write Jupyter Notebook, okay. And now you're in your notebook, in your folder. So let's select new Python 3. And now we start a new notebook. So let's first import some libraries. So I'll import, okay, AIO HTTP that we just installed. Then I'll also import the time. So we're actually going to check the time. Then import another library called async, actually async IO, okay, and then import requests, okay. So let's run that, and then I'm gonna create some variables so I can add the URL, the time variable, and so on. So let's write URL equals to the link, which is http:/127.0.0.1 and then start equals time, okay, and results will be equal for now just to brackets, so we're going to store our results there. And then I want you to do a for loop, and in this for loop we're actually going to run all our requests to the server, which, as I said, there are 10 of them. So let's do for I in range of 10, okay. So for those, let's do result dot append, actually let's do dot append, and if you can see, the result is actually our list, so we're going to add things to this list, and we're going to add there our 10 requests. So let's do requests dot post and then URL dot connect, okay. And here we got an error because I had to write results instead of result, and here also it's not connect but it's content because we actually want to check the content. And now you can see that everything is accepted, so we troubleshooted successfully. And now let's do print, and let's actually print the time for which we complete our request. So I will do time, and then in curly brackets I will do time dot time, okay, minus start. So this minus the start time, which should give us the exact time needed for completing the 10 requests. And it says that we got 40 seconds, but I think this is because we added this on a separate line, so it passed some time. So let's do it here, and you can see the time for every request. And if I add the print statement outside of the for loop, we're actually going to get the time for each and every step, which is 0.06 seconds. Okay, so actually 0.06 is quite fast. This really depends on your computer, as my computer is actually really quick. I got this time, but sometimes you could get something like 14 seconds or something like that. It really depends. So this was our first test, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember this number, 0.067 seconds. So in the next video I'm going to show some more examples, and I will do it actually in asynchronous way. I will do the same thing with the 10 requests, and you will see how much speed we gain just from that. That's it. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in our next video. Asynchronous to asynchronous API calls. Hi everyone, welcome back to the course. Well, last time we saw that we complete our task for 0.06 seconds, which is not bad, but honestly, having more and more tasks will actually increase our time. And if I do here 100 tasks, this will actually be completed for 0.4 seconds. And if I make them like 1000, this will really take some time. And you can see that this takes exactly 3 seconds, 0.78. So let's leave them 1000. And let's see how this time will improve. Let's actually run it some more time and see if the time will actually change. I don't think it will change, but you can see we're getting 5 seconds. Let's run it again. So here you're getting also about 5 seconds. Well, you can see that here, this is because all the tasks are sequential, right? So they're running one after another. Let's try to improve that a little bit. Now let's try to run everything in a different way. So I write URLs equals to an empty list, and then I will do, actually let's do it here inside. So I will do for I in range, and the range will be 1000. Okay, and then I'll write URLs dot append, and then here I will actually write the link. So I write http://127.0.0.1 8000. Okay, so this is going to be our for loop here. And then let's create a function called async. Okay, so we know that now we're in asynchronous mode. def test, and here I write URL. Okay, so here I write async with AIO HTTP dot client session. Okay, and then as session. Okay, so here we're just setting up the different sessions that are going to be running at the same time, and then I write async with session dot post URL as resp. Okay, and then we return await response dot text. Okay, so let's execute that function at the same time. And now once we executed that, let's write some variables. So let's write start equals to time dot time. Okay, and then loop equals async io dot get event loop. Okay, this is a predefined function. Then let's write results will be equal to await async io dot gather, and here in the bracket I will write multiplication sign loop dot create task, and then let's write test the URL that we selected for URL in URLs, that's it. Okay, we're done here actually. And actually this bracket, I wrongly typed it here. Actually we need to close it right there on the test URL. And so after that, let's write a comma and let's write return underscore exceptions equals true. Okay, this is a little bit longer line of code, but this is how you actually run the gathering function, and all this will be recorded in results. And finally, let's write a print statement here. So print and then f time, and let's write here time dot time minus the start time. Okay, and we're done here, guys. That's it. So let's run that and let's see if I did some errors. So you can see that there are no errors, and actually the time is quite improved. So instead of 5 seconds, all of our requests were actually done quite faster than before. So what you can see here is improvement with about 10 times. So from 5 seconds we got to 0.5 seconds, which is absolutely amazing. Let's try this again. So let's run that and see the time. So it takes 5 seconds here, and then with the other one is taking just 0.5 seconds. So you can already see the huge improvement for the asynchronous tasks. And if here I make it 10,000 seconds, or 10,000 tasks, let's see how long would it take. Okay, so this took about 1 minute. This took 54 seconds, which is not a surprise because this is 10 times more. And let's see how much it will take with the asynchronous. Actually, this is a combination between asynchronous and sequential, and actually later on I'm going to show you even faster methods. So let's run this and see how long would it take. So this takes 4.8 seconds for 10,000 tasks, which is considerable improvement because I definitely prefer waiting 5 seconds than 50.